Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm Stephen Billings, and this is Andrew Cabral with me. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
We're on, spy number 37?
Yes, it is. Spy number 37.
And once again, we are spotlighting some guests, and this time we got two guests again this week. They are coming from Los Angeles. They are Jim Branscome and Nick Vance, and they're from the Cinematic Void podcast. And I want them to tell. I'm not going to sit here and go over everything that they do, but let's go one by one and get their bios here. Jim, tell us about yourself.
Man, always being put on the spot.
I know,
here.
right? I'm sorry.
Let's see. I'm going to try to make this as concise as possible, as I have many cats joining the conversations as well, who will be adding their input as we go. Basically, I started Cinematic Void in 2016. I moved to Los Angeles several years before that, and I was I started out as a videographer, editor, filmmaker, that kind of stuff, and then I just not going to do that anymore because there was just no money in it. Like, doing freelance and indie films just wasn't cutting it. So, but I ended up hooking up with Beyond Fest. Not the first year, because the first year they had Goblin and Clive Barker and stuff like that. And for those of you who don't know, Beyond Fest is the largest genre festival in the United States. And that first year, I became friendly with Christian Parks, who's one of the founders. And I basically said, hey, if you need any help with anything, like video stuff, let me know. And then the next year, I'd been fucking around, and I love dummy drops.
Yeah.
And I made a little highlight reel of just stupid dummy drops, like Dr. Butcher, Nightmare City, things like that. And Christian's like, that should be the intro video for Beyond Fest. So that's how I became involved with that. And then I was kind of just looking for a part-time job because I was very, very underemployed at the time. So I started working for the American Cinematheque as a concession worker. And they have at the time, they only had two theaters. They had the Aero Theater in Santa Monica, which is a lovely theater. You can see it in such movies as Donnie Darko, 10 to Midnight, forgetting some other ones, but those are two of the big ones. I always push 10 to Midnight for obvious reasons. And, sold concessions, that kind of stuff. But I lived in Hollywood, so when the opportunity came, like, hey, you can go work at the Egyptian Theater, which is one of the historic theaters there. I was like, I'll go work there. And then at shortly after I went over there, they had a turnover in theater management, and no one else wanted to be the manager or assistant manager. So it's like, I'll do it. Not really thinking of it as a commitment. So then I went from assistant manager, and that lasted a week, and then they just referred to me as full manager. And I was doing that. I was doing stuff with Beyond Fest because Beyond Fest is hosted at the Egyptian Theater. And then, I guess couple years into it, I made a pitch like, hey, could I do a film programming series? And they're like, okay, just tell us what you plan on doing and your ideas. So I came up with all these elaborate double and triple features, which, funny enough, it took me about 3 years to actually get to do most of them. But they kind of looked at the list, and one of the programmers, Grant Moniger, who he's now I think he's the head of programming now for the American Cinematheque. At the time, he was just one of the programmers. He's like, this stuff's good, but we're going to put you in our smaller theater within the Egyptian, which is the Spielberg Theater. It was a little 80-seater. And why don't you pick some weird single features that normally would die if we put it in the big 600-seat room. So I sat around for a couple months. My wife helped me come up with some names because you have to have a name for a programming series, and it just kind of landed on Cinematic Void. And basically the mission I wanted to do with this was kind of fill a void for people of things that wouldn't play, theaters a lot, especially cult films, because obviously a lot of rep houses are going to play Halloween or Elm Street or Friday the 13th, stuff like that. And my interest was more in the weirder shit. So 2016, the Valentine's Day weekend, I started off with two shows. The first one was X-Ray, aka Hospital Massacre, which is the other Valentine's Day slasher. And then the second day was The Sinful Dwarf, because Severin Films had just done a restoration, and I did a little work with Severin, doing some video editing, and I was like, hey, David, would you be David
Gregory.
David Gregory, of Severin.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, let's do this screening. So we screened The Sinful Dwarf. And people were disappointed because we didn't show the version with the hardcore porn. But that's another story.
That's always a problem. That's always a problem,
Yeah, I think that would have been uncomfortable. There was a lot of people on dates.
Yeah,
Sinful Dwarf.
you're into what
Not
you're
a date
into.
movie.
Yeah. But that was the beginning of the programming, and then like for maybe the first year, I was like every show is like, am I going to get to do another one? And now this month on Valentine's it just turned 6, so I guess I don't have to worry about like not doing shows anymore at this point.
Yeah, it's me and Andrew both are very much though we are home media collectors, we very much love going to the theater, and we love any time you can take the idea of introducing people to stuff that's already come out, and especially cult movies and things. Just curation in the theater is a whole other game that I love. Now Nick here. Nick, I know you guys do your podcast. Where do you all play it? Nick, where do you play into this?
Well, that's I'll start at the very beginning and still try to keep it short if I can, because the very beginning is I met Jim on the fucking school bus on the way to school.
This is a big flashback.
When we were like 14. Yeah. So when we were like 14, I met Jim on the school bus, and we bonded instantly on like our love of like punk rock and stuff like that. And then just kind of ultimately he was always more the movie guy, and not that he wasn't also the music guy, he was, and we definitely went there with that a lot, but like I would say like in the way that he was the movie guy, I was the music guy, right? And we kind of met in the middle and traded those things. And so he's the one that turned me on to Videodrome and Cemetery Man and stuff like that, where I was just like, oh, I like horror movies, yeah, for sure. And he just like, oh no, just like piled on, here's a grip of like tapes with like 6 VHS tapes, like watch all these. And so that, so that's how it started. And we both played music and whatever throughout our 20s. And then he moved out here to LA, and I followed him shortly thereafter to be the best man in his wedding.
Nice.
More or less, I moved to LA to be his best man at his wedding, and I just stayed here. So then I ended up managing a record store over in Silver Lake for about 5 years, and did that and ran it into the ground. And after that closed, I was just kind of looking to like, what am I going to do now? What the hell? That was my life's plan, was to just like run a record store for the rest of my life, and just like, just fucking be that guy, just be Jack Black behind the counter, just like talking shit to people, but that wasn't in the cards, or at least, not as of right now. So, Jim's like, hey, why don't you come over to the Cinematheque? I could, at best I could probably get you a job like handing people popcorn.
Dude, I've done it.
If you're just looking for something to do. Yeah. And hey, no shame in that, man. So it can even be a lot of fun, and it got me in the door to still being a film lover of sorts, but like never digging as deep into it as Jim has, for sure. But who has the time?
No, I'm with you, man.
I'm busy collecting fucking thousands of records, so like keeping up with film in that way wasn't always my main priority. But anyway, got the job at the Cinematheque. We did that for a few years. I quickly also became assistant manager and did that whole thing. And then so we're just showing like, we do the repertory stuff, we do the cinematic void stuff, but like it's tons of like art films, like stuff, Janus films, stuff like that, I don't know, a lot of it didn't seem to interest me at the time, but I was always there behind the counter chilling. And did we start the podcast during the pandemic, or was it right before? We
started the podcast like in February, because I guess we'll backtrack a little bit, because like Nick and I'm at least originally from Maryland. I think you were close to Maryland.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh no shit.
Yeah. I'm a big Orioles fan. They suck, but I keep up with.
Look, one of the biggest inside jokes that comes up on the podcast, at least for Nick and I, is we mentioned the Billy Ripken fuckface bat baseball card, which is probably the extent of my baseball knowledge. But like, I'm from
that, and the Ripken's parents getting kidnapped. There's plenty of things to talk about with the Ripken family.
Yeah, because I'm from Aberdeen, Maryland, which is the hometown of Cal and Billy, and I guess they say Frank Zappa's from there. I don't know if that's just some bullshit Wikipedia thing, but whatever. I mean, more famous is like like 35 minutes away from Aberdeen is like Baltimore, where you have John Waters and The Wire and Don Dollar, and a little south of that, Hercules Loons and the Redneck Zombies.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm intentionally leaving off Barry Levinson, but whatever.
It is. Yeah. But I'm. I didn't spend a ton of time there. I spent a little bit of time in my youth there, but I've always had a connection to it, and just from visiting family there, and But back to you guys. So where's the story?
Yeah. So just kind of like roughly when the world was kind of getting a little weird, but it hadn't really stopped yet. We were still screening stuff at the theater. Everything was mostly normal. It was just kind of like wash your hands, sing happy birthday, fucking spin around, whatever. And fucking Jim's like, I guess, podcasts are a thing. I should probably jump on this. And I had all the equipment and a little, editing know-how, a little like I've always been like a music guy and got into like music production and like recorded my own records and stuff like that. So I sort of have some knowledge of that. So I'm like, hey man, I'll give it a shot. I'll record your podcast for you. And so he came over one day and we were just going to do like a test run. And so it was just kind of like, I'm on the podcast just like for the test run. And it was fine. I don't want to talk myself up too much here. Like, oh, I did great, but Jim's like, why don't you just be on the podcast? And so here I am, and that's really it. I'm a film lover, but I'm
well,
learning.
I was gonna say, listening to your podcast, there is an element of bringing up, physical, bringing up music too. It's not just about film, but it's about just you guys both bring a very material way of talking about both music and and you guys do these like commercials, like old school commercial stuff throughout and it has this really old school feeling to it, which I like. You guys both kind of come off more like radio DJs of sorts, kind of style. Would you agree with that? Like kind of something you're going for maybe, or
I guess that's just on accident because we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. Because like I'll be 100% honest, I never really listened to podcasts. Like I had been on maybe one. I was on Screen Drafts with Jonah Ray of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And we did one of those, and like that was the first like real podcast I was on. And I kept being told by people like, well, if you're gonna build your brand, I hate to use that term, but like it's a thing now. It's like if you're gonna build your brand, if you're gonna expand what you're doing, which was kind of just a little goal I had because, like, yeah, it's cool to show movies in LA, but it's like, why not try to figure out how to get a bigger reach? So I was like, well, I guess I'll do a podcast. And when I originally talked to Nick about it, like, the idea was just going to have a different guest each week and do an interview, one of those kind of styles. And then quickly that devolved, and it just became him and I sitting over his house, like, talking shit about movies and by default music, because, like, that's what we normally talk about.
Yeah. Andrew,
it's just we're just hanging out, but fucking recording it. And what more do you need? That at least on our side, that's what's the most fun.
Yeah. We try to keep it as loose as possible. I mean, like we like to see where the conversation goes, and that seems to be what you guys try to do. Is and I know you guys have guests every once in a while. Also, I just listened to the recent one you guys had, where you did your favorites of the year, and I'm trying to remember what was her name. You just had on a few.
Oh, Diana Prince.
Yes, that's it. Yes, and you guys did like your favorite music, and then your favorite movies releases from last year, and it was a great episode. And Andrew, did you want to pop in and ask him anything?
Yeah, I'll pop in. I was just letting you guys flow through whatever you were doing. I didn't want to interrupt the stream of consciousness. But yeah, just not even from my perspective, just kind of something that we always talk about here on the show is kind of the origins of people's love for movies. And we've kind of gotten a bit of your origins, kind of, how it connects to your modern day stuff. But I guess going back, even further to your younger days, were movies a part of your life as really young, children or, adolescents and stuff like that? Like, where does your love of movies come from? Was it from parents or other relatives or just friends, or where does all of that start for you guys?
You want to go first, Nick?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. Yeah, from an early age, my mom was taking us to, I don't know if it was Blockbuster at the time, but whatever was, whatever mom and pop shop was nearby, wherever we were living. We moved around a bunch. I lived in Baltimore, Franklin, West Virginia, Dover, Delaware. Like I've been around a little bit, but there was always a little video store around the corner that we would go to, and my mom would get a stack of tapes. And then once I was kind of teenage age, that's when it was like, now I'm grabbing like 6 tapes of my own just to have for the weekend and watch all weekend. And that's how I kind of developed my love for horror and trying to but just digging through like the. I don't know if essentials is the word, but like fucking Jasons and Freddy's and Halloween and just going through the motions of all the horror stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and just always stuck with that. So
I guess for me, I always had memories of like very young going to the movies, and it's like, I don't want to say my parents were cinephile because they would take me to the more populist stuff, obviously. Like, I have a vague memory of seeing E.T. as a kid and being fucking mortified by that fucking giant turtle on screen, but they definitely took me to all the Disney stuff, they took me to all the PG stuff. And then the other thing my parents did, I think very early on, maybe early on, it seemed to me, they got a VCR and they would tape shit off of TV. And we had HBO and stuff, and they would tape everything on EP. So we have these crazy fucking VHS tapes of like, it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and the Garfield Halloween special, and then Baby the Dinosaur at the end of it. Like there's a bunch of tapes. Like I remember like watching Empire Strikes Back and like I think Masters of the Universe on the same tape. Like it was just insanity. And like I would. We watched stuff, but then I would rewatch those tapes because, like, at a very young age, I got very into Halloween, but I was terrified of horror films because I saw a version of Night of the Living Dead. It wasn't even like a real version of Night of the Living Dead. It was some version that someone redubbed. And this is like late 80s, early 90s, and I don't know who the fuck it is or what it was. Because I remember there's some joke where someone had dubbed in Ben. He's like, oh, there's a lot of people coming over. We got to feed them. We'll feed them these nails during the scene where like they're supposed to be hammering and putting the thing up. And I just remember that. That's the only thing I remember from this version of it. But like,
wow,
where I lived kind of in the suburbs, but there was a church that was probably like half a mile from my house, and it had a cemetery in it. And one of my greatest fears was Night of the Living Dead becoming for real because I was within zombie walking distance. So this was this real thing, and it's like I can't watch zombie movies, I can't watch horror movies and stuff like that. And at a certain point, I think it was at Walmart, and Elite Entertainment just put out that remaster of Night of the Living Dead. It was a 2-tape set. I think it was 1 tape, and then the second tape had Night of the Living Bread and some other shit on it. And I was like, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to get over my fear. And I watched Night of the Living Dead, and it kind of opened my eyes in a lot of ways because, and this is no disrespect to Night of the Living Dead, but because it was a low-budget movie, I could see the nuts and bolts and how it was made. So not only did I get interested in horror films, I got interested in filmmaking because I feel like if you watch, say, like, I don't know, Raiders of the Lost Ark or Star Wars, you're all caught up in the fantasy and all those elements. But when you watch something that's a little more, like, unpolished or, like, DIY where you can see how it's constructed, it kind of opened another door for me, and I got very interested in not just watching film and consuming film and horror films particularly, but into filmmaking in general. So that became a big obsession with me from like end of middle school through like I guess even now.
Yeah. And so you I know you said you were getting into videography a little bit. Did you take any of that love for film and try to make anything, or?
I went to film school in the early 2000s. I went to Towson University, which is not really known for being a film school type place, but it was an affordable college. I'm not paying off student loans at this point, thankfully, but
that's good.
I went there for film, and like at the time I went, like you could still shoot 16 millimeter. And, they had 3 film courses, but it also, going there was like, I got to actually work with film and edit film. We still had flatbed editors. Eventually we started transitioned over to Avid in a system that no longer exists, or it might exist, or just no one uses it anymore. It's called Media 100. So I was learning all the fundamentals of filmmaking, but at the same time, you had film history, and then you had very specific things you could learn about film. You know, obviously, every college has history of film, but like this one started breaking down genres and like different things. And like I took a class which was like genre theory, and I missed the slasher course of it, which was like a year before I started. But we had post-nuke, so we watched things like Brazil and Zardoz and like things that like I hadn't had an opportunity to see, so I got to see them there. But then I also got to watch, like, you know, art films, and like you get to watch Fellini and Godard, and like one class I took was like American Indies, so it's like you got to watch the beginning of like the Coen brothers, David Lynch, Hal Hartley, things like that. So when I was going to film school, it's like I became obsessed with filmmaking, and it also opened me up to a bunch of things that I wouldn't necessarily have gotten at a video store. Like, how many people are like, I want to go rent a Hal Hartley movie, or like, what's Breathless? This sounds like something to take home, you know, that kind of thing. Especially when you're a kid, because if you're at Blockbuster, probably 90% of that shit wouldn't have been there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mostly
Very true.
Spielberg movies.
Yeah, I do not remember seeing a lot of foreign films at Blockbuster in the 90s. I do not
maybe
remember that.
Amelie was hanging out there, maybe. So I know, Nick, you said so you're working at the America, one of the theaters, right? You're working up. So do you guys work together you guys are working together to get these screenings put together, right? Is that how it works, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, technically, Jim was my
Oh,
boss.
shit.
He was the
man.
manager, and I was the
Okay.
assistant manager. So that's a fucking bummer for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
So,
because I'm such a fucking taskmaster.
Yeah, what a dick. Like always.
so how
No,
does it?
but-
We know you work with some of the labels that we like to talk about, like your Severins and your Arrows. So how does it work? Working with them to get these kind of restoration screenings together.
It's actually been less in the more recent years because, you know, since AGFA started like consolidating all like the labels and that kind of stuff, like it became one-stop shopping, so you didn't have to reach out. But there's still labels that I have individual, like, you know, working relationships with. Like Severin technically was there at the beginning, and I used to work for Severin for a little bit, but I do a lot of their restorations. We just did this past November their second Super Shock pop-up film festival, where they showed 3 movies that hadn't been announced yet for their Black Friday, and we had done it a previous year at the Egyptian. This year we did it at an outdoor venue at the Cine Lounge outdoor, which funny enough was in the parking lot next to where the Egyptian is. In a weird twist of fate. But I basically, because of the stuff I was looking at, like I wasn't booking a lot of studio stuff for Cinematic Void. I book a lot more now, but that's a different dynamic, and there's a reason for that. But like at the time when I was booking an 80-seater theater, you know, labels were looking for promo, and it's like, what better way to get someone excited for a release is doing a screening. And like they had venues, but like people wanted to work with me because like I'd push it and we'd make it a little event. So I did a lot of stuff with Severin. Like I've even shown things that still haven't come out from Severin that have been sort of announced, like Young Warriors and things like that.
Yeah. All right.
But you know what it is, it's like, you know, Severin's like maybe the office is like a mile away from my house.
Oh, nice.
I can always call or talk to Dave and be like, hey, is there something you want to do? And we talk about things back and forth. Probably by the time, I actually don't know when this podcast come out, so I might be spoiling, but it'll be fine. I'm actually showing a 35mm Italian language print of Patrick Still Lives
Okay.
on March 7th, which is, you know, it's a weirdo Severin title. I mean, it's the Italian rip-off sequel to Patrick, the Exploitation classic.
Yeah.
And that was something I talked about. It's like, hey, you think this would work? They're like, fuck it, let's do it.
When it comes to your decisions about what to screen, is it all about, like you were saying, availability of certain titles and, you know, working with labels, or is there also a personal preference about stuff that you just want audiences to see?
It's a very multifaceted thing, because at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of people that program films that have to four-wall theater. And if you don't know what that term means, it's basically you're renting the theater and you're paying for everything, and basically any money you get at the box office goes to you. I have the luxury of not doing that because it's really fucking expensive to exhibit a film. So there's considerations I have, like, I basically try to balance out what I screen. Like, I'll show something that's very, when I was doing more double features and triple features, a little easier, I would basically put in the big marquee title. Like, I would show something that, like, I don't necessarily like love, but I knew would draw people in. And then I would get to sneak in two things that I really wanted to see, like one for me or something I think people should see. And that was my best method of doing that. Now that I've been doing more single screenings, and for the time being, I've been doing like a monthly Monday residency, it's kind of mixing up because, like, you gotta, at the end of the day, you have to sell tickets because it's expensive to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And like, if no one shows, you could show something you really love over and over again, but if like 5 people consistently show up, you're not making money. You're like, yeah, you might want to rethink what you're doing, or you don't get to do it at all.
Yeah. And I know that at a lot of these screenings, you guys have had like some Q&As and special guests. What are some of your favorite experiences you've had doing that?
Let's see. There's a few, like when I had Nancy Allen for Dress to Kill, that was one of my favorites. Dean Cundy, I had him out for Escape from New York, was a really, really terrific one. The most ridiculous night is, like, the Cinematheque was doing a Rated X series. Like, you should do... Sorry.
No, you're
my
okay.
cat's just knocked... I don't know what the hell my cats did, but... I was going to say, there's a... They did a Rated X series, which were movies that were Rated X in the 70s, not porn movies, stuff like Clockwork Orange and The Devils and things like that. And they're like, you should do the horror version. The problem is a lot of horror films didn't go out with an X rating. They went out unrated. So I came up with a pitch to do Maniac, Last House on the Left, and Cannibal Holocaust. And we got all 35mm prints for all 3. And then first Bill Lustig was going to come out and do a Q&A for Maniac, but he's like, I'm gonna have Nick Refn's going to come out and do my Q&A. So Nick Refn came out and did a Q&A with Bill Lustig. Then Mark Scheffler, who from Last House on the Left, came out, and I did a Q&A with him for Last House. And then Carl York drove down from San Francisco to do a Q&A about Cannibal Holocaust. And it was like the most insane night. Like, we had about 400 people there, and they stayed the whole entire night. And when Carl York went up, he's like, there's a lot of sick fucks still here, aren't they?
And Nick, you're there for all this? You're there?
I'm there for some of the screenings. Nowadays I'm no longer assistant managing the theater under Jim. I'm actually the film traffic guy, so I make sure all the films get to the theater, and I run to like the different archives and different film studios in the area, or even stuff's getting shipped in. I'm kind of like monitoring, like hey homie, did you ship this in time?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm the guy that's just making sure that every single night, for every show, the shit's there.
You're like that guy that has the suitcase that you see is like going around. He's got like the handcuffs, and he's like going around. Like, yeah.
I'm the most important person.
Of course,
in the chain.
no, I agree. Dude.
Yeah.
Look,
You're the linchpin.
Yeah. I mean, look, I used
Without
to work.
you, there's no screenings.
Yeah, I used to work
right.
in a movie theater that still showed film here in North Carolina. Right before had to been one of the last ones, and we'd always get them canisters, and I actually used to put together some of the films, and yeah, I mean it's something I miss. We don't get much of that over here at all, and yeah. Do you do any? Have you done any of that? Have you done any like actual like putting together the reels, and have you dealt with any of that before?
Me personally, no, I haven't. I've expressed some interest to the chief projectionist to like maybe learn that stuff. But
I know they're probably a lot more. They're
chilling.
a lot more careful over there because it is like a lot of like archival films, and so you literally have like a expert on hand. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be the booth is like fully approved in order to get most of these prints. Like you have to go through all these steps to get that approval, and in order to make it happen. Otherwise, they're just like, we're not lending you this film. Like, no way. So not every theater can get this stuff, for sure.
Because I don't know what you were saying, like putting the reels together, if you worked with a platter system. Like that's a big, that's a big no-no in rep cinema. Like, UCLA or the Academy Archive will actually fly someone out to your theater to inspect it and make sure it's up to snuff, and they see a platter, it'd be like, nope. because that's one of the big rules with it, which is like we at least in LA where we're at currently at the Los Feliz 3 and the Arrow, and eventually the Egyptian when it reopens after renovations. But we also have the New Beverly, we have the New Art. We have a lot of rep cinema that runs 35 and 70 and 16 and that kind of stuff. We're very, very spoiled over here.
Oh yeah, it does make me extremely jealous of all the repertory theaters where you guys are. Is it very difficult to find 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter prints of some of these films? Like, have there been films that you've wanted to get that you just couldn't get the materials for because for whatever reason?
There's a ton of movies that I would like to screen on film that I've been holding off, hoping that prints show up, because sometimes, like, we deal with a lot of, like, archives, but we also deal with private collectors. And, like, private collectors will sometimes have better catalogs than the studios. Like, a lot of studios in the 70s, the 80s just, like, dumped their film prints, and that's how, I mean, even before that, like, there was, it used to be I guess it's still technically considered illegal to be a print collector because it's supposed to be stealing, but, like, I think the studio doesn't give a shit now because, like, they basically trashed so many prints, and it was private collectors that basically saved them. Like, when we came back out of the pandemic, my first screening was Cobra, which is a Canon film, but, Warner Brothers controls the rights. Warner Brothers, like, that's the other thing when it comes to this stuff. It's like you can have a rights holder that has no materials. So Warner didn't have a print of Cobra. They're like, well, if you can find a 35 or show a Blu-ray. And it's like, well, you're not going to show Blu-ray. And there was a private collector that had a print, so we showed Cobra on 35. And, that's just a cool thing because, like, some studios have really great catalogs. Some studios don't know what the fuck they have because they have such a vast library and haven't archived it. There's a company in, like, they're called Park Circus. They control basically the MGM library. And what I mean the MGM library is all the stuff Warner Brothers didn't acquire, which I think the cutoff is like 83 or something like that. So it's all that stuff. They control a lot of the Canon stuff before, like, Warner, I forget where that cutoff is. They have Orion Pictures. They have a big catalog. And there'll be times where you'll write that guy, and it's like, we don't have a print like that of that. And then you see it play somewhere else, and you write the other film programmer, like, hey, where'd you get that print? They're like, oh, they have it. And it's like, son of a bitch.
I would say one thing that we've mentioned here many times, even in our previous iteration of the podcast, is you could do a whole series of shows based on just preservation and restoration of film and the terrible ways in which it's been handled. I mean, I know you guys are dealing with more films from 70s and 80s and then currently now, but just going back further in time, they cared way less, even more, when it came to silent era, 30s, 40s. There's horrific stories of them just, like, throwing away, perfect prints of film, of movies, just because they didn't have any use for them anymore. And it's, do you ever find that sometimes you'll get a print and it'll be unrestored or damaged and you just can't even use it? Or do you typically try to find the best that you possibly can find and just kind of roll with it?
I mean, because there's more of a demand to show things on 35, at least for cult stuff, like,
right.
You've probably heard the term, you're going to show things that are considered faded prints. And what a faded print is, like, Eastman, Kodak Eastman struck a lot of prints. And up until 1982, the problem with these prints was, like, they would start fading. Then when they fade, they would turn red or pink. There was other film stocks. There's Fuji, which when that fades, like, it keeps its color a little better, but it starts turning, I guess, purple. But, like, and then there's, like, Agfa film stock, which turns brown as it fades. But, like, it wasn't until 82, 83 that they changed it so prints didn't do that. And occasionally you'll get lucky and get a print that's LPP or I forget what it is, like LPP, I think. But it's, like, basically a low fade print that was struck from the era. And, like, you'll occasionally get that stuff from the 60s and 70s, but, like, or you'll get a Technicolor print when, Technicolor doesn't fade. But, like, there's times where I'll show a fucking red print because it's the only version, because, like, sometimes there's not even a Blu-ray, there's not a DCP, that's the only way to show it. And some people will roll with it because, like, people seem to associate that with Grindhouse, although if you were actually at a Grindhouse theater in, like, 1973, you would not be watching a pink print. You might be watching one that scratched the shit because they played it like a million times to that point. But you wouldn't be seeing a red print. But like a lot of people have this nostalgia of thinking like, oh, I'm seeing it how it would play like 42nd Street, when like, nah, you're seeing how it's playing now in 2021.
Right.
Yeah. And also with this, so obviously with our podcast, we talk a lot physical Blu-ray and stuff. So I see you have a big collection behind you, Jim. Now, also Nick, do you do any collect? I know you're more into music, but do you do any collecting of your own when it comes to movies? Or?
Yeah, I only recently, I guess I could, I'm using the pandemic as time here, but it's kind of right around that same time when we started the podcast and all that a friend of mine and I had just started talking about Criterion stuff a bunch, and he talked me into getting the Criterion channel. And then after I had that for a month or two, and I actually sold my entire record collection semi recently to buy a car and stuff like that. And just like when the pandemic did hit, like I was out of work for a number of months and shit like just shit like that. So the record store being closed for a couple years, I had this like period of time where like I was just not so into music. I got more into, you listen to the podcast, I got more into just hip hop, rap, and just kind of through all the rock music that I've been listening to for the last 25, 30 years. I just didn't care anymore about punk or metal. It was just like, it was some bitterness of the record store closing, I think. It just kind of made me just like turn my back on my entire old life. And so, yeah, I guess I did just then become the movie guy. So I sold my record collection, and then immediately after going, oh, I feel so good that I don't have this burden of being a collector anymore. I don't have to do this thing to my wallet anymore.
I deal with that now every day. Like I'm like, oh, jeez.
Totally. And then I immediately just started collecting Criterions. And so now every paycheck I buy like between 1 and 4 Criterions, and I'm just building up a massive collection now over the past
great,
2 years. So
yeah, it's a struggle, man. We talk about it all the time. I'm surprised my wife hasn't killed me yet, because I have an issue, and it's gonna have to stop here soon because that baby's gonna need to eat, and but
you gotta fill that void in your soul, with Blu-ray.
I still got to get some stuff. She knows that I have to get something. I just need to calm down a little bit. But Jim, tell us a bit. Where's your physical media collection head you? It looks like you got a little bit of everything back here.
Yeah, although it's organized by label just because it aesthetically looks good, because I change it every so often, and every time I do alphabetical, I can't stand how it looks because everyone. Yeah. And I know there's some people like, well, it's not about label worship. It's like, I'm not really worshiping a label. It's just like, it has to look decent on the fucking shelf. Otherwise, it's just like, there's the OCD thing that kicks in there. But like, I get all kinds of stuff. It's like, slip covers are cool, but they're not essential to me because at the end of the day, I'm not watching a piece of cardboard.
Sure.
I'm sure all my friends at labels are like, thank you for saying that. But like,
no, we say that here too. I mean, we both like them, but yeah, it's not essential. It should be about the movies first and foremost. But I think a lot of people do forget about that. They get enamored with the nice packages, which we are grateful for. But sometimes feel like they're forgetting about the film. Yeah, I mean it's. Seems like you guys have done. I mean, like I feel a connection in the sense. I want to say the last thing definitely before we finish up. You guys got any great stories, both working at movie theaters? Any fun stories? Because I got some. Any interesting experiences?
Oh man, I'm trying to think of the ones we actually can tell publicly.
Well, I'll tell you mine while you're. I'll tell you mine while I'm thinking. While you're thinking about it, I had a guy once. So I'm trying to. I can't remember exactly which movie it was, but I was sweeping the hallways as you do, sweeping up popcorn, and next thing I know, the stairwell that leads up to the the projection room, some random dude comes down with his shirt off, and he has a drink in one hand, and he's like, "Where's the bathroom?" And I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He's like, and then I was like, "The bathrooms are there, I guess." And he walks past me in the opposite direction and decides to just pee in a trash can, and then leaves. Then he leaves. He says thank you and he leaves. But that was one of my favorite moments working at the movie theater. There's other ones, but anything like
There's
that.
definitely a time. There's a time when it was a day where I had to do the intro for the film that was playing. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was. So there was we did a run for Netflix of The Irishman, and at the Egyptian we didn't do that a lot, where we would play the same film for an entire run. I mean, we ran it for maybe 6 weeks, something like that. Jim?
No, it was like
not quite that
It was
long?
like 2 weeks. It felt like 6 weeks.
It felt
Because
like 6 months.
we did 3 showings a day, and that movie's 3 hours
Yeah,
long. So that's like.
So I had to do one of the intros, and someone fucking vomited, and we were very short staffed that day. And like even though I'm the manager, we were so short staffed that day that I actually had to run and clean up the vomit myself. Meanwhile, it's like seconds before I have to go on stage and do the intro. So I went and mopped up this vomit and didn't even have time to really wash my hands, whatever. And I just ran up there hey, I was the guy that was just over there. Maybe you saw me clean up the vomit.
The Irishman.
To 600 people, Yeah. What do you, the Irishman, guys? So yeah, that's one. And then, Jim, can I tell my other Irishman story? Is it a little bit much? The people that wouldn't get off their phones. Do you know this story?
I think you can tell that one.
Okay.
As long as you're not naming celebrities, I think they're okay.
I have no names. But during this run of The Irishman, that was being a rep cinema, we have a particular audience. When we showed The Irishman, it was a big deal. We were like the first folks in town showing it, and it brought out the normies. And they were obnoxious and they wouldn't get off their phones, and it was crazy. So one of the nights, these people were really on their phones, and it was crazy. The whole aisle of 8 people that are all there together, it's just lit up, and they're just talking really loud on their phones, blah blah blah. So me and this other manager kept going out and going hey, can you please be quiet? Can you please get off your phones? And then eventually it got bad where we were hey, come on, you come out here, come out into the hallway and talk to us. So I did this. I tapped on this woman's shoulder and was hey, come out here and talk to me. And I'm look, you can't be on your phone the whole movie. What the hell? And she was I have never heard of that before in my life. What the fuck? You've never heard you can't use your phone in a movie theater? What is wrong with you? But she ended up being really her and all her friends were really drunk. And she started crying, and they went into the bathroom, and they were in the bathroom for a half an hour, just scream crying. It was insane.
Wow.
And we're just can you please just leave instead of scream crying in the bathroom? But
Sounds like the scene from
so,
Midsommar
yeah.
where they're all crying together. Is that how it was?
It was bad. That was definitely the most dramatic incident I've ever had at the movie theater. So,
All right, Jim, this is your moment. Come on now.
All right, I'm gonna pick the one that one of these days I'm gonna write a tell-all book. Nick knows almost all of the stories because he's heard them all and lived through a few of them. This is the one I'm comfortable retelling. And so back when Feud came out on TV, the Betty Davis versus Joan Crawford thing, the Cinematheque of the Egyptian decided to do a series of Betty Davis, Joan Crawford movies. And something weird happened every night except for whatever happened to Baby Jane. That was the only night that went without a hitch. We had one night where we had rolling blackouts in Hollywood and the lights would go out. But then once the lights came back on, it would set off the fire alarm. And our booth is nitrate proofed because in order to play nitrate film, your booth has to meet certain requirements. There's this thing that has to come down and shut, like a steel shutter and stuff like that. So that was happening one night, but I forget where it was in the run, but we were showing this Betty Davis movie called The Star. And we had a 35 millimeter print. And a lot of people don't know this, but when you get prints in, you don't do full tech runs because you don't have time. It's very cost prohibitive. So you get a print, you put it on, the projectionist might put it up on the rewind bench and kind of go through and check to make sure the sprockets aren't busted or see what the condition of the print is. So that was done on this print. They start playing the movie. The credits are in Italian. And I was that's interesting. And now we've done like Noir City, the Film Noir Fest for many years, and we've shown lots of weird noir prints that like sometimes come without like the optical for the title card isn't on there. So you have this weird like background image and there's no title. And sometimes we've shown prints that have come in with like different language titles that were spliced in because they lost the original English titles or something like that. Lots of things happen. I was like, but this was coming from like a reputable like studio archive, and I'm like, that's interesting. I'm gonna assume that like this is just a weird fluke and it's gonna be in English. Betty Davis opens her mouth. It's in Italian. It is a completely Italian language print of the star, and basically we had to like stop it, and like I think we had to play like All About Eve or something, like the second feature or whatever it was. But like that, there's stuff like that happens all the time because like, you know, there's times where projectors will break and like that kind of stuff. And then there's just weird stuff dealing with customers, which are like sometimes are really hilarious stories. Other times it's like scarring. I feel like that run The Irishman scarred a lot of people that worked with us because like it was just you know, there's a different crowd that comes to rep cinema. That's the people that love film and love movies and that kind of stuff. And we were getting basically the multiplex crowd who basically wants like the 12-year-old or 13-year-old that like just like make sure everyone's seated when the movie starts, and then they go about their way to go clean the bathroom. People do whatever the fuck they want. So you get that behavior coming into a rep cinema. Like it's happened to like all the rep cinemas in town. Like even like the New Beverly, which is staunchly 35 millimeter only, they'll have, you know, normies. I guess normies is the correct term. Like people that like movies but don't love movies that go there and think they're at their house watching Netflix or something like that. So they'll pull out their phone, which is like the biggest sin you can do in any movie theater.
It's the sin everywhere. My wife gets on me like about how angry I get when I see. I mean, it ain't even just the phones too. It's the fact that the awareness of how loud you can be, just munching on popcorn, and I'm like, guys, is this how you eat everywhere? Are you this sloppy everywhere you eat? Like, I don't know, but
yeah, I think Stephen and I have always talked about the lack of movie theater etiquette that people are just genuinely aware of seems to have degraded over the years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, pre-pandemic times, I think one of the biggest things I always complained about when it came to going to the movie theaters is not, you know, the movies themselves. It's the people that were there were just so, you know, and these are like regular multiplexes,
I think
16, 18 screen multiplexes. Yeah. And it was just too much at the time, you know.
I think it's just unfortunately, it's just I think it's because of how people the reasons why people go see movies these days have changed. You know, people are not going to the movies for the same reasons anymore. It used to be to maybe, you know, actually feel like they gained some kind of something, you know, whether it be like a learning experience about, you know, they saw something in themselves in the characters or something. Now it's just about apparently turning off your brain is the favorite term to go see movies, to turn off your brain. I
think entertainment has always been part of it, but I think people almost take it for granted.
Yeah.
So that they feel as if they can do whatever they want. And that's not the case. You know, you're out in public and you got to be aware of the people around you. It seems that should be, you know, movie, you know, so societal etiquette 101.
Yeah.
But that doesn't tend to happen. But even in terms of, you know, movies have always been a communal experience as well.
Yeah, is that a big part of why you guys you like doing what you do?
I mean, there's no better feeling when you have like a packed house and you show something and the movie kills, and then you have like people from the film there. Like, but probably my favorite screening I've done very recently, I did it in December. I did Get Crazy. I had Alan Arkish there, leaving from Fear, and Laurie Eastside, who's Nada from the movie. And we showed like, we got from the MGM vaults answer print, which is like basically it's a print that like, you know, answer print doesn't have matting on it. So the projectionist has to take their time and frame it. But like we had a really packed house. Like Alan teaches at AFI, so he had some of the students come out and see it, and like the movie just like killed. It was like the theater was just rocking, and then we had like a great Q&A after, and like that's why I love doing screenings. Like I know it's a screening, but it's also kind of an event, and like I feel like that's kind of the thing you need. I like to separate. Like anyone can show a movie. You know, you can show it at your house, you can go to a movie theater, but like what I feel like what I love doing is creating an event where it's like the headliner is the movie and everything else that happens with it is just like in celebration of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's something I live for. And like, you know, I don't, you know, I've done a few Q&As since we reopened and I hope to do a few more, but like, you know, putting on those kind of events, it's like, you know, it's a different energy than me just going up and introducing a movie I like it's second to none. Like, and if you're in a theater and everyone's connected and everyone's loving it, it's great.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, and I'm not trying to diss people that you can get that experience at the multiplex, obviously, because a lot of people did it for the Spider-Man movie or whatever. You know, it's like, that's not my thing, but like, it's cool that people were able to have a collective communal experience, regardless of what I think about those movies or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's so few and far between, where it's like, you know, you also can get things like we show Stalker, Tarkovsky movie a lot. Tarkovsky's now a very hip filmmaker for some reason. Like people love Russian nihilism now. I don't know. Like
for some reason,
yeah.
Doesn't.
Yeah,
for some
really.
reason, it's like top 5 film of all time.
Yeah, but like,
for some reason,
well, but what I'm
that's why people care. But no, I get you. It is hip for
no,
sure.
but I'm saying it's like, you know, a couple years ago you would do like maybe 150 people for that.
Oh shoot! The cat's really just the cat's just
That
destroyed
sounded
something.
like a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
I'll figure that out later. Anyway,
we're gonna
I'm glad
keep
this is
all
all
we're gonna
gonna-
keep all that in, by the way, because it's
yeah, that's what I was
That's
saying.
good for the audience.
That's good for the audience.
But I was say I don't know what Jim was saying though about us getting those guests and stuff like that. Like again, I have to, you know, brag. Like we're so lucky out here.
Yeah.
Like dude, yeah, it's just everybody lives out here.
Yeah.
So like, you know, when Beyond Fest did like the Fanatic, it's just like, oh, here's fucking Fred Durst or whatever. Like, you know, it's insane. It's just like Fred Durst just walked past me. This is like this is a weird.
The closest
day,
I've
dude.
gotten to that was I went to the Telluride Film Festival. It's been about maybe 3 or 4, maybe 3. I think it's 3 years ago, and you know, obviously a lot of the stars of the films show up, and we went into one of the hotel restaurants, and there was Laura Dern. Laura Dern walks in just like nothing, and I'm like, that's fucking Laura Dern. My friend was with me. She was like, who is
The whole
that?
room
I'm like,
stops,
fucking
you know?
Jurassic Park. Laura Dern. It's fucking Blue Velvet. Come on now. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, they're just people. And she was with her daughters. She had her daughters with her, and she was nice and shook my hand and everything. So yeah, I get that. And the closest I've gotten to that experience, Jim, of like that, you know, like you said, the event was like we used to do this a lot more often earlier on, but like we used to do like midnight shows for like the new films coming out on that Friday, and you know, I'd love doing like I remember doing The Dark Knight, you know, and people getting, of course, super hyped for that new Batman movie, and just sitting in the back of the theater watching people get, because I'd already seen it. I'd already watched it and knew what was going to happen, you know, and just knowing when certain things were going to happen and watching people get excited about it. It's just it's a feeling that it's hard to replicate, you know. It's probably the closest you get is being like a musician on stage or a comedian, like feeling that, like that crowd just all at one time, just like feeling something, is just a great thing. Even if it is not directed towards you, you know, it's like, it's a great feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I go for, because like Nick and I both have music backgrounds, and like, you know, being in bands, you get a sense of showmanship. You know, it's not something I intentionally did. It's just something that naturally happened just based on my background. Like, you know, it's like, again, anyone can show a movie, but I feel like when it feels like an event, it feels like something special, and it's more memorable. Because like, I think when the early days when they started doing midnight shows of movies, then that's when you first got to see something. It was like, you were there with the diehards. You were there where people were like really excited to see something, and like that's a great feeling. And it's just like, you know, I haven't been to I don't think I've been to a multiplex since, you know, things have reopened here. But I just remember going, like, I intentionally would go to, you know, movies like afternoon matinees of mainstream stuff because I just didn't want to deal with people, you know.
That's my favorite time to go to, is like on a Friday at like 12 o'clock, you know, during the day, like nobody's around. But nowadays, not as many people around anyway. So really doesn't matter what time you go. But well, I think that was a great conversation, guys. We very much appreciate you guys coming on to talk with us, and we very much respect the stuff you guys do out there, and keep doing it. Keep putting on the films. You know, hey, look, start another record store. Get Nick, get back to it, man. Don't give up on that. You know, record stores are coming. Records are coming back around, man. People are buying that stuff again.
Yeah, for sure.
Nick's just gonna start.
We'll see.
Nick's just gonna open a Criterion Depot or something like that.
Hey, you know,
a kiosk.
Kino's putting out 4Ks of every Criterion there is, so maybe Criterion might need to be sold off eventually. You know, everybody's gonna buy all them Kino. I'm just kidding, but
Nah, I think I'll say this about Criterion: they're gonna slowly get into 4K, but they're gonna do it their way. And I also think like another thing that's gonna kind of hurt a lot of labels. And, like, you guys have maybe talked about it, but I know it's, like, it's getting harder and harder to find new stuff. Yeah. And this is for all, you know, boutique labels up and down. Like, that's why, like, you know, you now have, like, you know, kind of, like, people like Severin and, like, Vinegar Syndrome and all that tapping into, like, Universal and MGM and those kind of libraries now.
Yeah.
Which, like, 5 years ago was, like, you know, unheard of. It was just, like, Shout Factory getting those Universal licenses that show, like, do Halloween 2 and 3 and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, because the other thing that comes up, and this comes up for me trying to screen like, you know, a more obscure like horror movies or cult movies and stuff like that, is just like prints are gone.
Yeah.
And then some of the people that own those prints or who own the rights to the films, they have no materials. They don't know where it's at. And if you do find them, they're not in good shape. And like, you know, it's weird to think that a movie that was made in like 82 or 83, 84, like just in the 80s in general, can be a lost movie.
Yeah.
Because when you think of lost movies, you think of the silent era and like times like that. But like, you know, there's a lot of independent and like, you know, regional films that are just gone.
Yeah.
And the best you're gonna get is like a shitty VHS rip on YouTube at this point.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying. I mean, like even there are certain labels that are already I think deciding to go in a direction that's more modern, like trying to look at some films that have last 20 years, like instead of kind of going further back, like Second Sight from the UK. Very much, I think, have been staying in a realm of more modern horror or modern, you know, kind of culty movies, or like, you know, stuff like they just put out the 4K of Babadook, which is a very recent film. They're doing Drive in 4K soon. You know, they're staying kind of new, and they're not really going beyond the last, like I said, the last, you know, 15, 20 years. So like you said, some, you know, there's tons of movies out there, but finding like prints and finding a reason to like restore them is what's difficult. I mean, they finally found something they could restore to do The Hitcher, you know, after such a long time. So, I mean, I guess maybe they just got to keep digging, you know, and you know, like you said, there's archives that are not kept up as well as others, that just need to be looked through. Yeah, if there's any, Andrew, did you have anything else you want to add before we end?
No, I'm good. I've got all the good info that I needed to get.
Well, guys, thank you, Nick and Jim, for joining us. What is the best place for anybody to reach out to you if they wanted to, you know, maybe if they're coming out to the area and they want to get tickets to a screening or just to contact you guys?
Easiest way for me is just go to cinematicvoid.com. It's got all the socials, because on, you know, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Letterboxd, whatever else there is, I guess.
Stuff I've created, I don't even remember I created it.
Yeah. There's a ton of ways. Plus there's email. I also have an email list, which helps, you know, that keeps up to date with like podcast episodes, with you know, screenings and like the virtual stuff I started doing in the pandemic, which is you know, that was the other thing, was like, when you screen movies in a movie theater, how do you make that work when you can't screen in a movie theater? Which was, that was a bit of a challenge, but like that made it happen, or made it work. So,
yeah.
But yeah, basically cinematicvoid.com is your one-stop shop for me, at least.
All right.
Nick, how can they find you?
You can find me at Paranoid Futures on all the social media places. So yeah, Letterboxd, Instagram, Twitter. I'm around.
Right.
So,
Watching Criterions.
Yeah.
All right, man. just probably got done listening, we had Cinematic Void guys on. That was a great conversation, And,
Great interview.
Great interview. And but now we are going to do our normal show, which is talking Blu-ray announcements, and
Yes.
It's a shit ton of them.
Yeah, we have a few. It's a good thing we took that little bit of a break, just so that I guess the Blu-ray announcement world could kind of reload and give us a whole new list of
And
a
try to kill
plethora
us.
of things.
And try to kill us. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a lot to go through, so I guess we'll just jump right into it. First up, we just want to hit a couple of individual standalone announcements. First up here is by our friends at Severin, and this is going to be a new 4K restoration of Dennis Hopper's film Out of the Blue, which is heading to Blu-ray. I don't believe this is the first time. Maybe it is. Either way.
Well, no, BFI just put out a Blu-ray.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought there was a previous release. But this is a 2-disc edition with 15 hours of special features, which is significant.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're
Yes,
talking
yeah.
three audio commentaries, new 4K restoration, and I'm super excited about this release because I thought this was a really great film, or think it's a really great film.
Yes, it is. And I listened to the Severin Films podcast where they talk. So everybody should go over there and listen to that podcast so they get in deep with about this release. And they put a lot of work into this, and I think when it comes to features, this might be the more loaded disc compared to maybe the BFI. Nothing wrong with that BFI release, but
No.
This might have a little bit more in the sense of features. But yes, great film. Just a shocking film.
It's a very bold film, which makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense coming from Dennis Hopper, who was always a very bold guy
Well,
on
yeah.
and off of the screen. And this film is coming out, and this edition is coming out on March 29th, if anybody wants to put that into their budget calendar for upcoming releases. And this is a film that I think it came out, I think this may be his third film that he directed, if
Yeah.
memory serves, because he directed Easy Rider. Was it The Last Movie? And
Yes, the last movie. Yeah.
And then this one, I believe, if memory serves.
Yep.
And this came out towards the end of the 70s, which was a rather wild time for Dennis Hopper. Just lots of real life, things he was going with in terms of, drugs and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the film is very much in his wild, uncanny style. And I think that's what makes it so great. It's so unpredictable and such a kind of film that's very much in the moment, but it's also kind of timeless in a lot of its aspects.
Yeah, it got a great, amazing performance by Linda Maines. She just transcends in this movie.
A young actress at the time. I think she was about 18, around 18 when she filmed the film. She filmed the film playing a 15-year-old, and it's her film. She's the lead of the film.
Yeah.
Even though Dennis Hopper is in the movie and he plays a rather prominent role in the film, it's her movie. We're following her journey and what she's going through, and it's one of those films similar to a lot of the films we see in a lot of different generations of kind of lost youth and isolated youth, kind of dealing with just a tough life, tumultuous times, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're just surrounded by really ineffective adults.
Yeah.
Just adults who are not equipped at all to be parents or any type of authority figures whatsoever, and they're too busy involved in their own nonsense in their lives to really care about their children or the next generation of people. It's very, very interesting kind of treatise on that type of theme of, how every generation seems to pass on a lot of its problems to the next generation without fixing any of them. I seem to find that to be common in so many ways. And in the 80s, there were a lot of these types of movies. There was River's Edge, I think was the one with Keanu? Yeah. Keanu Reeves. And then, of course, there's Stand By Me, which is another film dealing with kind of youth kind of trying to figure things out on their own because they have no authority figures to really help them, guide them and whatnot. But yeah, this film fits right in, I think, with all of those movies. And it's a shame that I think this film's been kind of lost in terms of, its recognition. It's more of a cult film at this point.
Yeah, it's finally getting its due here with a couple recent releases. So yeah, I mean, it's that I already pre-ordered this one. This is coming to me. They got a nice Sister Hyde did the artwork.
Oh, nice!
On the,
talk about a direct
edition.
connection to our previous episode.
Yeah, I think she even alluded to it at the end. That this
yes,
was, so
that this was on the horizon.
But all right, yeah, that's great news there. And speaking of great news,
and speaking of wild people on screen,
yes, as you know, I'm a fan of the Cage. And this had to be talked about.
The Nicholas of Cages.
Yes, this was brought up a couple days ago that a little company we don't really usually talk about, MVD Rewind Collection, is putting out a Blu-ray edition of Vampire's Kiss starring the great Nicolas Cage. This film is amazing. We kind of talked about it a little bit when we had Douglas McCambridge on, because I talked about how they just recently done a podcast talking about that movie. So go over to the Good Times Great Movies. They'll talk about this movie if you don't know anything about it. But yeah, Vampire's Kiss. I mean, God, I have a German version of this movie in a digibook, and it works fine. But I'm getting this. There is no real anything in the sense of like features. There is an audio commentary with Nicolas Cage and the director, but other than that, it's really just about getting it in a Region 8 form, making it easier for me to pop in the player. So
yeah, there is another Region 8 disc which is now out of print, so you couldn't even get it. I guess you could get it if you wanted to pay, super high prices for it, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because this one is coming out in June. And that previous disc,
I think it's going for like $18.99. So yeah, not bad.
Yeah, the new one, yeah, much cheaper than the $100 I'm seeing for what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah,
and this is the Shout Factory release of Vampire's Kiss and High Spirits, and I'm guessing it's a one disc like double feature release that came out in 2015, and I don't know how the picture quality is going to compare between that release and this release, but it's got to have a higher bit rate just because it's one movie on one disc versus two movies on one disc. But MVD, I know a lot of people within the physical media movie collecting community collect a lot of these MVD releases because they're part of a similar series as like a Vestron or stuff like that, where they're kind of like really leaning into a kind of retro market, if you will, retro aesthetic.
Yeah.
They have like I think an imprint of MVD marquee collection and stuff like that, and they put out a lot of re-releases of films that have already gotten releases other places. Like I'm just looking here, like the Barbershop movies, Double Impact. I know I had a previous Blu-ray release. Things like Out of Time, the Denzel Washington film. I know I had a previous Blu-ray release a while ago, and this is a blast from the past, and I can't believe that someone put this on Blu-ray or that this has a Blu-ray release at all. And that is the movie Double Dragon. Steven, did you watch this when you were a kid?
Yes.
I saw this in theater in 1994 when it came out because I loved the video games and then I loved the animated series as well, which I have to actually do research to see if that animated series ever got a DVD release. But yeah, Double Dragon has a Blu-ray release. That's the world we're living in. Wild. But they're very much leaning into that type of nostalgic aesthetic. And Vampire's Kiss, for those of you who haven't seen it, chances are you've seen the memes and you've seen the GIFs of Nicolas Cage, because all of them come from this movie, pretty much.
Yeah,
all of them.
It's a wacky movie.
It's
as we talked about with Doug. It very much almost kind of plays on the. It kind of seems like what's the Christian Bale movie? The
American Psycho.
American Psycho kind of plays off of it a little bit in the sense of like a rich yuppie type that, kind of goes crazy. But it really, if there's like a pinnacle like movie that explains every facet of Nicolas Cage, it's kind of this movie.
Yeah, I was just saying it's an early role for him, and it's probably the earliest role that we can associate him with a lot of Nicolas Cage isms that he would become famous for later on.
It's
because
like he
after this movie, he was doing like not serious work, but you would get his '90s stuff, Con Air, and
I was going to say
leaving Las Vegas.
it's like somebody suppressed him at some point. They were like, "Nick, calm down," and they like gave him drugs and they like calmed him down.
He's like, "Okay, I'll calm down for a decade, and then just go crazy out later."
Yeah, and then he just started losing his hair, and then he was like, "I'm crazy again." It's
But
amazing.
man, there's no one more committed than him when it comes to just going full tilt. Like I'm gonna lay it
he
out
knows
there.
what he's doing. Yeah.
And it's like, take it or leave it, but I'm giving you everything I have. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's still working.
He's the man.
His movies may pop up on straight to digital, straight to streaming, but he'll still give it his all.
And then he does movies like Pig, where he
Which is
blows
amazing.
you away. And then he's got this movie that's going to be in theaters. It's him playing himself. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that
It's gonna be
trailer's crazy.
Yeah, he's amazing, and he's going to be playing Dracula in
Yes, he is.
Ransfield. Yeah,
Yes, he is.
So it's going to come full circle from Vampire's Kiss to Rensfield.
Yeah, because
know.
in Vampire's Kiss, for those of you who don't know, he thinks he has like a one night dalliance with a woman he believes is a vampire, and he believes he's been turned into a vampire, and he just starts acting like a vampire.
Yeah.
And
Or whatever he thinks.
for whatever
vampires
reason.
should like.
and now he's going to be Dracula in Renfield, which is filming currently.
Yep.
And the movie that we were talking about where he's playing himself is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yeah.
And he's playing himself, Nick Cage.
God, I can't wait.
Brilliant.
All right, it's enough of the love fest.
Enough of the Cage Fest.
Yeah. So let's move on to Kino Lorber. Let's do this.
Yes. We haven't talked about them in a little while, just so that they can build up their announcements back to an abundance that we can get into, and we shall do that now. So going back weeks and weeks, basically back to the early part of the month, where do you want to start, Stephen? There's a lot to go through here.
The 2-pack there with Vincent Price.
We'll start where my heart lies the most these days, and that is with Vincent Price. So we're getting a dual pack double feature release of The Abominable Dr. Phibes and Dr. Phibes Rises Again. And those of you out there who are, I guess, Vincent Price fanatics like myself may or may not already own these films, because they have been available in the Vincent Price collections from Shout Factory, which I think now are all out of print, or at least they're pretty. They should be by this point, because the the Abominable Dr. Phibes was in the Volume 1 release of those releases, and Dr. Phibes Rises Again, I believe, was in Volume 2 of those releases. So whatever rights issues or holders or whatever this stuff, Kino owns all the rights to all those movies at this point, because they've been re-releasing them like crazy.
Price up.
Yeah, they re-released so many of them last year, and they're doing that right along now. So if you missed out on those sets, you have a chance to buy them now. Unfortunately, when it comes to, I guess, your mileage may vary when it comes to cost and whatnot. They are releasing them individually, so you do have to buy them, however the price is. Kino's prices pretty much range from $12 to $20 a piece on their movies for the most part. So as opposed to those sets where you could buy a Vincent Price collection set on Blu-ray for $40 and get like 6 movies, and there you go. So that's kind of the drawback, but at least you have a second shot at getting these. And for me, Vincent Price, there's no price I wouldn't tell people to pay, because I think his work is just great.
So are you saying Vincent Price is priceless?
Yes, I am.
That's
Damn,
weird.
what a connection.
Makes no sense.
Damn, that was good. I did not put that together until you just said
I
it.
know, right? That's why I'm here, man.
That's why he's here. And I would highly recommend those movies. I would say this, for those of you who haven't seen those movies, the first film is much better than the second one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
The second film is even odder than the first film, if that makes any sense, because the films are odd in and of themselves. So it's like you would think you couldn't get weirder, but you can. And
Well, I mean, look, the casts are amazing in both. Not only Vincent Price, but you got Joseph Cotton in the first film. And then in the
Yes.
second film, though not as good, Peter Cushing's in that film.
Yes, he is.
So if anything, dude, the casts are great. And
Yeah, and this
what's
is
interesting
late-
also to look
yeah.
at here is that the first film is PG-13, and the second film.
PG.
Oh, you know what? No, it's PG-13. I thought it said
no.
PG, and that's what I was
Yeah.
like. Wait, they went the Expendables route where they just deadened it in the second movie.
Well,
You
it
know,
looks like it. It looks like that. And what is interesting is at the time,
no,
these
it is. You're
movies-
right. It is PG. Yeah,
these
the second one
movies
is
wouldn't
PG.
have the PG-13 rating didn't exist until Temple of Doom came out in the
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
So PG, it's either PG or R. There's no in between.
Yeah.
The second film is basically could be subtitled Dr. Fives Goes to Egypt because that's what the plot of that movie is. Is he wakes up 3 years after the events of the first film and is like, I have to go to Egypt to find this this tomb where I can find this rejuvenation water for his wife and whatnot. It's a wild film of him just murdering people in the desert who are trying to chase him down, and it's a wild film. Both of these films are so wild.
I sometimes miss the way franchises were built back in the day, because, and I'm not saying it's necessarily makes for the best movies, but it's sometimes you get some of the wackiest movies when they try to make a sequel to something and rush it. And it's because this movie comes out a year later, and they were like, "Wow, successful! The first one's successful." Suddenly, they rush in the second movie, and within
just come
a
up
year.
with anything. Just
and
come up
it's
with anything.
sloppy, and it's not even really that good. But it's still, it's much more interesting than some of this crap that we planned out the next 6 movies, and you're like, well, it all looks the same now, it's all the same thing.
Yeah,
over
you're
and
talking
over
about
again.
modern franchise making as opposed to back in the
Making
day
one
when they
good
don't
movie
really-
and then trying to
Yeah.
make another good movie. Not that this is a great example, but I
No,
miss
no,
the
no.
idea that a movie can stand alone and we don't have to watch 10 other movies to get that movie.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, it's an older version of maybe a cash grab. You're trying to piggyback on the success of a first film, so
Well,
you just
like,
rush out a second one
I mean,
with a
the
similar.
the
it's
Fu
like
Manchu movies. I mean,
it's like you always have, and also the titles are always the return of whomever,
the resurrection.
or the resurrection of whomever, or
Every Matrix movie. The resolution, revolution. Yeah,
but that's a different case.
Reloaded.
I'm just saying more like a specific character's returning, and the title of the movie will just be they're returning.
Well, the thing is it's, I mean, I haven't seen these movies, but it says, that he's rising again. So I guess he rose in the first movie too, right?
I guess so. Yeah, he does. He does kind of.
I was gonna say I don't
there
know
is this
enough
whole,
about
yeah,
the movie.
he does kind of he doesn't. He comes back from the brink of death,
Yeah.
and he comes back to get revenge.
Okay.
And
Damn, he's
that's
quick
the
to
whole
rise
plot of
again,
the first
yeah.
movie. He's
Yeah.
getting revenge on these doctors that botched the surgery to save his wife and all this kind of stuff. And in the second one, he's trying to resurrect his wife by this ancient Egyptian water of life or whatever. It's really, really contrived, but it's just fun to see Vincent Price just chew up the scenery and just do evil, despicable things.
Like I said,
basically, that's the whole fun of watching the second movie.
Bringing it back to Nicolas Cage. I need Nicolas Cage to play Vincent Price in a movie. 'Cause
Oh, that would be kind of
He
great.
is the best. I can't see anybody else doing it. He's
Yeah,
got
and
it.
I've been trying to look up. There is a new audio commentary on Dr. Fives Rises Again, and I'm trying to see if these were on 2 discs or 1 disc. All I can really see is this may be 2 movies on 1 disc, which is kind of unfortunate because if you get the old versions, the movies are on different discs and whatnot. But I just wanted to see if there was a major difference between this and the Shout Factory release, and it seems to be that one audio commentary seems to be the difference.
Yeah.
This does come with a slipcover and whatnot, like a lot of their releases are doing these days.
What-
I would have to do a side-by-side comparison to see what else is missing, but that's pretty much the gist of it. And this is coming April 12th for anyone interested.
Well,
But moving on from there.
I was
think
going
we
to say,
should
you
move
know
on
what
from
else
Mr.
comes
Price.
out April 12th and has a slipcover?
Ooh.
Tentacles.
Oh, good transition. That's where I was going. So, Tentacles, a movie that you can kind of guess the plot of by just the title of the movie, because it's a 1977 monster movie. I don't know. I have not seen it. It's another movie rated PG at the time, shot in CinemaScope, 102 minutes long, and the cover of this is just a giant tentacle monster doing monster things.
Hey, dude, it stars John Huston, so it's and Bob
nice.
Hopkins is in it. Shirley Winters is in it.
Nice.
Henry Fonda's in it.
Damn, what a cast.
I know, right? Like, come on, guys. This is a must-get.
I'll tell you, the artwork of itself looks great. It looks like a mix of, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea meets The Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's kind of what it looks like to me.
Do you think this is definitely, them trying to bank on the success of Jaws?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
This is
Jaws?
2 years
Jaws,
later.
1975? Yeah.
Yeah. This is 2 years later, and with this cast, I bet you all these actors were like, "Look, the animal attack movies are the way to go right now."
Well, that and disaster movies were kind of also the way to go as well.
Yeah.
Because I remember Shelley Winters and Ernest Borgnine were in the Poseidon Adventure, which was earlier on in this decade. And then of course you had the Towering Inferno, which had every major celebrity at the time was in that as well. It was kind of just get a bunch of celebrities in these kind of disaster movies.
They were the Marvel movies of their time.
I guess so.
I mean, just think, what if Towering Inferno was this, part of the same line of movies? It was all connected universe. Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure were connected in some way. It's the whole world is falling apart at the same time, and we're just getting different stories that are interconnected. Hey.
Don't give Hollywood any ideas, because they would do
They'll just remake all the movies and make them connected universes, yeah. Suddenly Day After Tomorrow is connected with Moonfall.
Both Roland Emmerich films. It's the Roland Emmerich.
He's been creating his own universe,
disaster
and we don't
universe.
even know. Yeah.
Moonfall. I wonder what that movie was about.
Dude, I saw it.
Oh, you saw? Yeah, the moon was
it's
falling.
Amazing. I loved it.
I don't want to go off on a tangent because we don't have that kind of time. I would have loved to have been in on the pitch meeting to see how that movie was pitched.
Well,
by Roland Emmerich or anyone.
Not that hard to get, because the whole idea of it's conspiracy theory crap that has been talked about, the idea that the moon is a construct and it's not actually
a moon,
a dead planet or whatever it was. It's like aliens made it.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it now.
I mean, it's the thing, but I liked it for what it was. It's fun.
It's Roland Emmerich doing his Roland Emmerich thing.
It is, and it's better than 2012, which is the one where I was like, okay, 2012, okay, stop.
That movie's long too.
It's too long for what it is. Yeah, but
moving on from disaster monster movies, we do have a couple of the film noir sets that are coming out. We do want to mention those. I think we've touched on these before, so this may be a little retread, but they are doing volumes 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
Are all coming out.
Yeah.
Which
I'm super, obviously super
I'm way
excited about
behind,
that.
so I have the first. I'm looking up on my shelf, and I have the first 2, so I need
Jesus,
the rest
you're behind.
of them. I'm way behind. And the early ones, they're not starting to sell out, but I know the volume 1 is tough to find than it used to be.
Yeah.
So grab that while you can, because I don't know if you're like me out there in the collecting world. If I'm missing something in a series of something, it bothers me. I don't know if that's a collector's issue with me or whatever, but it is an issue. So Volume 6 is coming out April 26th, coincidentally. What they are telling us now, though, is they're giving us extra features and more information about the quality of the release. These are all getting brand new 2K Masters. Looks like they're all getting a new commentary, which is really, really cool, because I know on a lot of their sets, they just don't tell us where the transfers have come from or the quality in which they're sourced from and whatnot. And they usually don't have special features for the most part.
Yeah.
So Volume 6 is getting all is getting all of that, and Volume
I'm
6
seeing,
has
I'm seeing right here on the Singapore release. We're gonna have Kat Ellinger, who's gonna be our guest in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the three movies
she's
are
on here. Yeah.
three movies are Singapore, Johnny Stool Pigeon, and The Raging Tide, and they all have, like I said, commentaries in Singapore. You're right. Kat Ellinger and author/film historian Lee Gambin do a commentary on that film, and yeah, I'm really excited for those releases, and I know, like I said, I know we're getting 7 and 8 as well, and I was kind of scrolling to see if I could find 7 and 8.
I think they're not on pre-order yet, so it's
okay.
They're just kind of announced that they're doing them, but I don't see. I see 8 down here. They also got 8 has Street of Chance.
Oh, there it is.
Enter Arsene Lupin and Temptation. These don't have any features listed yet.
No, but they are getting brand new 2K Masters.
Yeah,
so that's nice.
And that comes it's coming soon for 8. Number 7's coming out May 10th. So they're all very, very close together. I feel like it's so close together that maybe they're getting out their last little bit of noir that they have, quickly. I was going to say in the can, but that's not exactly true. So Volume 7 is coming out May 10th, you're right, and it's The Boss, Chicago Confidential, and The Fear Makers. Those are the 3 coming out in that set. Yeah.
And I'm very curious how many more of these sets they're going to get. Are we going to get a 10? It's going to be Film Noir X.
Dude, keep them coming, man. I'll take them all.
Yeah,
I take anything that says Film Noir on it, I typically buy.
Yeah, what is interesting about Film Noir, and I don't want to get off on another tangent, is it seems like every studio has a piece of some type of Film Noir.
Except
somewhere.
for Shout Factory doesn't give a shit about that.
I guess for the most part, yeah. But like Criterion releases old Film Noir, Kino releases Film Noir. There's been other studios like Kit Parker. Kit Parker has the Film Noir sets, but they have like 9 films on like 4 discs or something. It's kind of wild. There's so much noir to go around.
Obviously, the Indicator sets, the
Indicator Noir set, the Columbia Noir sets.
Imprints put out some. We're going to talk about one of their sets coming up.
They put out their own noir sets that kind of cross over with Indicator a bit.
Yeah,
and then now they kind of open the door into a new area, which we're going to get to when we get to their slate in a little bit.
Yeah.
But so Volume 7. 2 out of 3 of those films are getting new 2K Masters, according to what I'm reading here. So that's Volume 6, 7, and 8. That's lined up for the next few months. And what's great, like I said about those box sets from Kino all the time, they're super affordable.
Yeah.
They're anywhere between $20 and $30.
Well, I will say, I already pre-ordered number 6 on Amazon. And right now it's listed at $50.
Ooh, that's a little.
For some reason, it's listed higher than usual. I don't know if that's just
that's got to drop. I think that's got to drop.
Hopefully it drops, but yeah, typically these run for like $30.
Yeah, that's the range, and that's the range I think you want for these releases. Personally, about $10 a movie, I think is good if you're a buyer on a budget.
Yeah.
But moving on from these guys, we've got a few more releases from Kino that we want to go through. And first up is we have 3 W.C. Fields films that are coming out. They released a couple of his films before that we covered a little while ago. Those were his most, I think, well-known films. And these are maybe lesser known films. Well, it really all depends on how big of a W.C. Fields fan you are.
Yeah,
but
what was it?
The Bank Dick was a big one that I know a lot of people know of.
I just remember that one because it's called The Bank Dick.
Yeah, that's a pretty funny name. Where he's a bank detective, but he's so inept. He sucks at his job. That seems to be a W.C. Fields recurring thing where he has some type of job or some type of thing that he does, and he's just really bad at it, and that's where the comedy comes from. So these films are You're Telling Me, Man on the Flying Trapeze, and You Can't Cheat an Honest Man. And they're all getting individual releases, and I think they all have brand new 2K Masters. If I'm looking here, they all have audio commentaries of some kind, or at least the You Can't Cheat an Honest Man has a new audio commentary, and the others, don't. The others just have like vintage documentary features on them.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's April 19th. 3 classic comedies starring legendary W.C. Fields.
Yeah.
So I've watched all of those, and I think they're funny. I mean, there's some things that are in it that are a bit dated, a bit out of touch with reality. And, you know, W.C. Fields, the more of his work that I see, the more I realize that his comedy is very unique for that time. And you really have to be in line with the way in which that comedy is going. You know, it's very on-the-nose comedy, very obvious comedy. And it's fun for what it is. And it really helps that the films are super short. Like, the films are less than an hour and a half. Like, one's an hour, one's an hour 20, you know, it's stuff like that. But moving on, we have Murder at the Vanities from 1934, starring Carl Brisson, Victor McLaglen, who's a great actor. And this is a film I know nothing about, and we don't even know much about this release other than it's a Paramount film, and it says a Paramount picture with the most beautiful girls in the world, and I guess music from Duke Ellington. This is literally just the poster.
Dude, I mean, you know something about this movie. There's a
What do I know about
murder.
it? Oh,
Jeez.
there's a murder.
And it's
Also,
at the
it's director
Vanities.
it's director Mitchell Lyson, who they've been putting out a lot of his work from recently. A lot of it, and yeah. And shot by Leo Tolver, who shot The Day the Earth Stood Still. Really nice.
I mean,
But
that couldn't have been that difficult. That everything was still.
Low-hanging fruit joke.
Terrible joke.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But I know Victor McLaglen because he's actually an Oscar winner. He was in a movie called The Informer, 1935. Amazing film. A stunning film directed by John Ford. It's set in 1922, and this is amazing performance. The movie won 4 Oscars, and he's incredible in it. And I don't even know if there's a Blu-ray release of that. I think there may be. And it's just a really powerful performance. Yeah. And I don't think there's a Blu-ray. No, now that I'm looking. So that needs a Blu-ray release at some point from somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to champion that, but I'll just...
You ready for some more 4Ks?
Yeah, 4K it up. So what are we looking at here, Steven?
Well, the Usual Suspect is what we're looking at.
Yeah, we're looking at The Usual Suspects. It's the usual lineup. So this has been talked about a lot lately when this was announced and rumored. Usual Suspects is getting a much, much needed re-release. Because I don't know if anyone knows this out there, but The Usual Suspects on Blu-ray was one of the earliest Blu-rays I think to come out, and doesn't look very good when it's come to its age. So this is a desperate re-release from the early days of Blu-ray, and it's getting a brand new Dolby Vision HDR master from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. You talk about noir, this is definitely a 90s neo-noir, as can be. Great cast at the time, you know, a lot of people who were relative unknowns, because I think this movie came out in 1995. So you've got like Gabriel Byrne, Stephen Baldwin, Benicio del Toro is in it, Kevin Pollak, Pete Postlethwaite, who I believe has passed away since. I remember this. The ending of this movie has been parodied and spoiled so many times on TV shows, in other movies, in social media, in every form imaginable. Steven, you've seen this film, have you not?
It's been a while, but yeah,
Okay.
It's never blown my socks off, to be honest with you.
Really?
I'm not like super. It's an okay movie. I like it fine. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. There's nothing. It's nothing. Maybe it's just because maybe when I saw it, I wasn't in the right frame of mind. But I don't ever remember liking this movie that much.
I always see this movie highly praised all the time when it comes to, like, you know, top 10 lists of the 90s, or, you know, best, you know, this or that or whatnot. I also want to point out that it's also, the screenplay was written by Christopher McQuarrie, who has now gone on to be more of a director than a writer, and he's done the last couple of Mission Impossible films, which I will straight up say this: probably the best Mission Impossible films that they've ever made has been the ones that he's made. Rogue Nation, Fallout, and then the seventh one's coming out eventually. That thing keeps getting pushed back
Yeah.
more than any other film ever in the history
That and
of
Tom
time.
Cruise's other movie.
That and Top Gun.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with these two Tom Cruise movies, but they're waiting for, like, I guess the tide to turn and for them to have the cleanest opening ever. And it's like, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. You might as well get this out while you
Tom,
can.
you're gonna have to just put it in theaters, dude. He's like
Right.
he's like a producer on these movies, so he's like
He's
trying to
probably got
recoup his
big-
money as much as possible.
He probably has, like, big pull in terms of, like, when this movie can get released. I think it's getting to the point now where by the time 7 comes out, like, 8 will be already ready to come out.
Yeah.
By the time they get
He'll
done
have
doing
filmed
this.
5 more Mission
Yeah,
Impossible
because you
movies.
know they're doing another one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to see a movie that needed a re-release finally getting a re-release.
Yeah.
And moving on from there, we have a movie called Grand Slam, which I think we've talked about before.
We talked about that one.
We
yeah.
talked about that already. Edward G. Robinson, Janet Leigh, Klaus Kinski. Yeah, I watched this movie. Now that I remember it, yes, I do. Then we have another collection here, Maria Montez and John Hall collection. And this is a 3-movie collection of White Savage, Gypsy Wildcat, and Sudan. And what is interesting about this movie is it's a 3-movie set, but it looks like it's coming in just a regular Kino Blu-ray case with the slipcover on it. And that's something different because when they usually do 3-movie sets, they put them in a box with individual discs, individual boxes, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't even know if this is going to be a 3-disc set or if it's going to be a 2-disc set or whatever it may be. All I know is it's getting brand new 2K masters, and it just says coming soon. So we don't even know when it's coming out. Sometime this year.
And these films are like kind of, from what I can tell, they're kind of like a, fantasy romance, kind of like
The cover would suggest that.
Yeah, but both of these actors were also in Arabian Nights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they they kind of have a history together, and they do these 3 films together, and I don't know, it might be worth looking into.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous romantic cover.
Yeah,
It looks like the cover of a romance novel.
Yeah.
So hence why
Trashy-
it's probably a
trashy
romance film.
romance.
Oh, right. I guess, depending on your perspective.
I don't know. I'm just kidding.
But moving on from there, speaking of a romance, in a way, we have a film called You and Me, starring Sylvia Sidney and George Raft.
You talk about
and
you talk
directed
about the,
by-
you talk about the Lifehouse song.
No, holy,
You and me.
oh my goodness!
all of the
You know my teenage hopeless romantic self play that on a repeat.
Yeah, I know, right? It was like on
Constantly.
every episode of every WB
WB show ever.
ever.
Oh, they goofed us into thinking like, oh, love and all this kind of stuff, and
Gilmore Girls
Yeah,
on
all this,
Friday
yeah.
night.
Dawson's Creek.
You
Da-da-da-da.
and me. Jesus Christ! Stop playing that song. But yes, Fritz Lang.
That was a hit.
I know
Back in
Fritz
the day.
Lang directs this film. You and Me.
Yes, 1938.
And our good old buddy George Raft.
Yeah,
is
George
back in-
Raft, who's a great actor.
Yeah.
And I saw this movie, and yeah, I'm super glad this is getting a release. Not only because it's another early Fritz Lang film, but it's a really good movie. It's
I think.
yeah,
it's
I really
also-
liked it.
I think it's also. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but I think that the story that this movie's based on is also written by the same author who wrote the story that the movie Fury was based on,
Oh,
which is also Fritz Lang.
hold on, let me. That is a
Norman.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Krasna. Yeah.
Norman Krasna. You are right. Yeah, he was the. Yeah, you are
Yeah.
correct, sir.
I-
That's
I-
very
I-
interesting.
I got something right.
Yeah, I know. Surprise!
Surprise! Steven got something right.
Surprise! Surprise!
But yeah, and Fury came out from Warner Archive, I think, a few months back ago, or sometime end of last year. But that's a great film, and I haven't seen this one, but I'm sold based off that connection.
Yeah, this film is about so there's this department store where the guy he hires like ex-convicts who are trying to rehabilitate their lives.
Yeah.
And because obviously we see that now where it's really difficult for ex-convicts to assimilate themselves back into society because when you go and fill out a job application, they ask you, hey, have you ever been incarcerated? Have you ever committed a felony? Have you ever done this? And then they won't hire you. And then they
can't do nothing.
they got to fall back into their old ways or whatever. It's a whole big story. But anywho, this guy, he hires people, and two of the people that are working at the store are played by George Raff and Sylvia Sidney, and they end up having a relationship and a connection with one another, and they end up basically getting married when they're not supposed to, because apparently, I guess, part of the whole, parole time period is you can't get married, which I didn't know that was a thing. And so they have to kind of hide it, and then there's some secret backstory with her that she hasn't revealed, and he kind of maybe slips back into his old roots with his old cronies, and there's a whole big thing going on. It's really, really good, and I really like the film a lot. So I'm super glad that it's getting a release, because it's another film that I don't think I would see had it not been getting a release from someone.
Yeah.
So way to go, Kino, on that. And this is getting a brand new 2K master, and we don't know when it's coming out. So that's awesome. But moving along here, once again, in typical Kino fashion, they're going for somebody else's property, and this property happens to be 12 Angry Men.
Was that a Carmen reference?
I don't know if that was
from
Carmen
South
reference.
Park. Property.
It may have been.
It kind of felt like you were like bringing out the Cartman in you.
It
I don't know.
may have been. I
don't
have
know.
seen a lot of South Park in my time.
Yeah.
Maybe it slipped in there.
Yeah.
But either way, the sentiment still holds true, because coming soon to a disc near you is 12 Angry Men, the Sidney Lumet film from 1957. It's getting a 4K UHD release from Kino, taking a film from Criterion and putting it on 4K. Seems to be their forte. A lot of rhyming going on here for no reason. And yeah, it's coming. And as someone who thinks the world of this movie, the temptation to rebuy it is so high.
They're not getting me, man.
Even though we have no list of special features whatsoever, all I can go on is the fact that Kino's 4K releases have been pretty good up until now. So
The
I got
thing
faith.
is I have nothing against what they're doing. I love that they're doing this, but they're not going to make me buy these movies again. I've already
It's
done
tough.
it.
I
It's
wish
not
they would
tough.
give us
It's not
a
tough.
voucher or something. I'll send you a picture or proof of purchase of my other one. Just give me some money off of these releases, because it's not like they're selling them for cheap. They're about 30, $35 a piece for these 4K releases. And it's I just paid $20 for the Criterion release a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's really going to also all come down to what the special features comparison is, because what's happening is a lot of these 4K re-releases are not carrying over special features, especially if it's from another company that's putting them out. So you got to play that game, and it's a whole big mess that we keep talking about over and over again. But moving on from there, because we all know 12 Angry Men is one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah.
We have a movie called Sunnyside from 1979 that's getting a Code Red and Kino tandem release. I know nothing about this movie at all.
John Travolta, man.
It's not John Travolta. It's Joey Travolta.
Joey Travolta.
Yes.
Wait a second here.
Yeah.
They got
I love how
us.
the tagline for this is "Every jungle needs a king." Joey Travolta, who was an Oscar and Beverly Hills Cop 3, makes his feature film debut.
What?
Debut as Nick Martin, a young tough guy from Sunnyside, Queens.
Wait a
Interesting.
second here. This is like when they did the fake Bruce Lee movies.
Yeah, I was gonna say where it was Bruce Lee, but Lee would be spelled L-I as
Yeah.
opposed to L-E-E or just L-E.
I was not aware that there was a fake John Travolta out there.
I have no idea if it's somebody related to him
I don't know.
some type of actor. I honestly have no idea. I just
I'd like to
love
think
how
that
they're
this is
selling
the
it.
fake John Travolta. This is the caricature John Travolta movie. I mean, it looks like they're trying to play off of one of his '80s movies. I mean, it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so. I know nothing about the movie whatsoever, so I couldn't comment on whether it's good or not. All I know is that it's getting a brand new 2K master and a new interview with actor Chris Mulkey. That's all I can say about that. But moving on from there, we have a movie of a different kind. movie from 1969, which is a Scorpion releasing and Kino tandem release, and this is Desaad, which is based off of the horrific person notorious for being just torturing the hell out of people, and that is Marquis de Sade. I love how the quote here is, "Man is not seduced to evil, he is evil." This is the creed of de Sade, and he reaffirms it daily as he exacts his sexual pleasure. Oh, man. From the tender flesh of the women of France. Wow, they're really selling the horrific eroticism of this. But
and
yeah,
it also came out in 1969.
1969, coincidentally.
Jeez.
It's getting a brand new 2K master and a featurette.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, and it's a film. Yeah, again, I've never seen this film.
Yeah, no, I've seen it.
But I love how the cover of this has a quote that says, "The most distinguished and daring film entertainment of the year." It's special guest appearance by John Huston as
he just showed up everywhere.
Yes, interesting. But moving on from there, there's a whole history lesson to go through with Marquis de Sade that we don't have time for right now. Needless to say, he just tortured the heck out of people around the time. That's why they always like reference him when it's sadomasochism, deriving pleasure from pain, sexual pleasure from pain, all this kind of stuff. That's kind of from him.
Gotcha.
But moving on from here, we've got another film that's also a Scorpion and Kino release, and this is Where the Lilies Bloom. And all we have to go on here is just a poster of the movie.
It looks very, very much like of its time. You know,
looks like a drama from the 70s.
Yeah, like Harry Dean Stanton's in it. You know,
that sold me already.
That already, yeah,
sold me.
It makes me think Paris, Texas. It makes me think, you know, some of his work from that time. And yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, it looks like a movie I'd be into. You know, kind of like almost like What's Eating Gilbert Grape. You know, feeling to it.
Looks like a family drama of the time.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Probably should look that up on IMDb, but
I probably should have. But you know, it's like we have like 1,000 movies to.
Yeah,
to
we
look
still
up
got
today.
we still got more to go. And of course, the most obvious of all titles is the next film here is Mysterious Island of Beautiful Women, which is just so descriptive. So descriptive. Yet again, it's another film that we're not too familiar with, but it is getting a brand new 2K master for its release. Directed by Joseph Pevney, who also directed Female on the Beach. He loves those obvious titles. He really does.
And they're making sure you guys know that this is also going to be on DVD, because how much do you really want to pay for this movie?
Well, I mean, maybe it's getting its DVD premiere if they're releasing it also on DVD. That's interesting. I don't know. But anywho, moving on there to the
last one we got.
The last film that is just dropped about 10 hours ago, according to this Facebook page. Another film directed by Fritz Lang, and I've seen this film, and it's Human Desire, and this is a reteaming of Glenn Ford, Gloria Graham, and Fritz Lang. Yeah. This came out in 1954. I believe this is the film that came out after The Big Heat, so it's kind of a reteaming of those elements. And man, I love how in big bold letters on the poster for this movie it says, "She was born to be bad, to be kissed, to make trouble." Oh, isn't that a femme fatale? If I've ever did see one. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this film, because if you have The Big Heat, you want to put this right along with it. It's a really good film.
I feel like this film should have, like, it feels like it could have been in an Indicator noir set. It is a Columbia release.
So is The Big Heat. The Big Heat is also a Columbia film. I don't know if Indicator put out a release of The Big Heat at some point and it's just sold out.
No, I don't think so.
I know, because I know The Big Heat's been released a few times. It was released.
When Twilight Time put it out?
Twilight Time released it twice because the first one sold out so fast. I want
to say maybe Arrow has got the UK rights to The Big Heat. Maybe.
Yeah, The Human Desire, not to cut you off or go on a completely different tangent, but that's That's our repartee. I remember this. This is a remake of La Bête Humaine, because the premise of this film is a Korean War vet returns to his job as a railroad engineer and becomes involved in an affair with a co-worker's wife following a murder on a train where they meet. I believe it is a remake of La Bête Humaine. La Bête Humaine is a film by Renoir, I believe. That needs a Blu-ray release like yesterday. It's a goddamn tragedy that movie doesn't have a Blu-ray release. That movie came out in 1938, starring John Gavin, and that movie's a great film. That's like an all-time great film in my opinion, and I would love if that would get a Blu-ray release. I think it may still have a DVD release from Criterion or somebody, but I'm pretty sure this is a remake of that. That's why it sounded so familiar to me. But as you were saying, the Columbia Noir stuff.
I'm surprised that it hasn't made its way to Indicator, but maybe somebody else has scooped it up somewhere. So.
Yeah, I thought I saw
this is a 4K, it's Blu-ray. Never mind.
Okay, I was right. Of course, I was right. So. Indicator.
Of course he was right.
Damn. That's the kind of stuff you shouldn't be saying out loud, people.
I know, right?
It's like, I'm thinking out loud. But yeah, The Big Heat did get an Indicator limited edition release in 2017 and then got a standard release in 2020. So they have put that out before. But when it comes to
before the noir sets were even thought of.
Yeah, because the first noir set didn't come out till what? Late 2020, like late 2020,
something like that. Yeah.
The Human Desire, I don't think has a Blu-ray release anywhere at this point. It's got a Masters of Cinema release in 2019. That's Eureka, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it does. That's the only other Blu-ray release it has. So I'm super excited about this. Right. And that should wrap up Kino. Damn, that was a lot of titles.
That's a lot of shit. Yeah.
Oh, I'm tired.
Don't get tired yet, but we're not even.
I know.
That was only like a third of the way through.
But let's move on
over to the Criterion releases.
Yes, jumping over these were dropped the 15th, so Tuesday of this past week.
Yeah, but we got some exciting stuff. I think that was little surprising, especially this first one we'll say, which is
indeed
a 4K release of Billy Wilder's Double Indemnity.
Nice.
How excited was this? Did you jump with glee when you saw this?
I was not expecting this to get a re-release from them, and I'm still a little bit in shock when it comes to this actually getting a 4K re-release. I like how we went from wondering when Criterion would put out 4K releases to now they seem to drop one at least per month at this point. It's like,
well, that just shows you how far in advance they've been thinking about it.
I guess they heard our cry. They heard our cries at the time.
I just hope that it's enough to keep having interesting 4K releases because it's like Kino seems to take every one of them. Very
true. But this wasn't. Yeah, this isn't a re-release of their previous films like we've been seeing before.
Yeah.
This is one that has never been in the collection before because this is number 1126. Now, for those of you who've been collecting long enough, you know that this came out on Blu-ray from Universal about a decade ago. And there is a difference between that release and this release when it comes to special features. This release is missing the intro by the late, great Robert Osborne from Turner Classic Movies. And I believe it's also missing a 1973 TV version of Double Indemnity movie. That's not on this release. So that's something to keep in mind when it comes to the main differences between keeping your old Blu-ray and upgrading to this new 4K edition or new Blu-ray edition, depending on your preference. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a fantastic film noir. One of the all-time greats. Yeah.
It's the quintessential staple, film noir 101 is all in this movie. Like, I'm pretty sure this movie is watched in every film school class about film noir on the planet. I know that's where I saw it for the first time. Was there.
Definitely.
So there you go. And it's getting a brand new 4K digital restoration. That's where they're getting this picture quality from. You are getting a new interview. You are getting one new interview, a new conversation. So there is new special features for that. So it's not just a port over of just all the other stuff as well. That's also important because a lot of the other stuff we've seen from them when it comes to their 4Ks are just been just special features they've already had on disc before, and they were just like, hey, here you go again. So this is at least something new that they've produced.
Yeah. Yes, exciting. And then this next one's also very exciting because I unfortunately I didn't get a chance to watch it, but it is on Criterion Channel right now if you want to go check it out. But I've been really loving films from Joseph Losley, and this is one that I think recently got a Studio Canal release, and now Criterion is putting it out in Region A land. Mr. Klein. Tell us about Mr. Klein. I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, Mr. Klein is a film starring Alain Delon. I think this movie came out in 1976. It did. And basically...
Of course it did. Of course I knew it. Of course, clearly. This is streaming on the Criterion Channel, and Mr. Klein is someone who is... He's like... this takes place during occupied France during World War II. So, there's a lot of things going on at the time. Basically, what happens is he's like this art dealer who's basically buying up all of these art paintings from all the Jewish people who are trying to flee at the time, and he's basically just kind of screwing them over and taking them, taking their money because they're desperate. Yeah. And what happens is one day is there's another Mr. Klein who is someone who's Jewish, and he gets mistaken for that Mr. Klein. So the whole film, he's trying to find this Mr. Klein, and he's trying to clear his name and establish his ancestry to prove that he's not, that Mr. Klein, because if he is, then the authorities are going to come after him, essentially. Yeah. So he's trying to avoid that because, of course, the horrific persecutions during the Holocaust and all those horrific things that happened at that time. And, of course, all of the prejudices that still exist today. So the film is very, kind of contemporary from that perspective. So it's him trying to kind of do that. So you're just going from instances and moments to moments where he's trying to figure out who this person is and how to find him. So you're getting kind of these, this journey of, leads and misleads and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, the movie's really good. Alain Delon, we all know, is an amazing actor. Yeah. He was in Le Samurai, La Piscine, just a plethora of other films. And yeah, he's incredible in this movie. And I don't want to say anything else other than it's a really, really good film. And I would highly recommend people buying it or watching it any way you can. We are getting a couple of interviews on this disc, new 4K digital restoration, but nothing really else in the way of special features. But I would recommend it, Steven, so get on it when you can. I'm gonna watch it. And so the rest of these, I think you said you've watched all these.
Yes, yeah. So Chan is
The Funeral.
The Funeral is a Japanese film from 1984, directed by Juzo Itami. Juzo Itami directed Tampopo. Yeah. And this is the film he did before Tampopo. So you see a lot of the similar type of narrative structure and kind of the oddball comedy in it that he would then, of course, kind of more perfect in Tampopo. Is there
a food element to this movie too?
There is, but it's obviously not the focus. The main focus of the movie is it's set around a funeral. Basically, someone passes away and the family has to come together, and you see kind of how the funeral goes when it comes to traditions and all this kind of stuff. And you see kind of, the way the family's handling, the way some people are handling versus other people, and kind of just things going on. It's really tough to explain. All I say that is it's both comedic, also touching at the same time, and it's unique. It's a very unique film. and there's no real like direct perspective of who the main character is, so it's kind of interesting narrative structure like that. I would this is another one. If you like Tampopo, I would definitely get this as well because it's in the same vein. Which reminds me, I don't think I own Tampopo, and I
What are you
kind of really
doing?
want it.
What are you doing?
Tampopo. I just like saying that word.
Tampopo.
Also, do not watch Tampopo while you are hungry late at night. Things will not go well for you. You will get even more hungry.
You will decide you want noodles.
Yeah, you will want ramen at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you
Hopefully have a
realize you
cabinet
can't get
full
it
of
at that time.
Hopefully you have a cabinet full of oodles and noodles.
Or there's a 24-hour Japanese restaurant nearby or something
Probably
like that. Probably not. But yeah, so I definitely recommend this film to go along with Tampopo.
Great.
So moving on from there, Chan is missing. I wanted to highlight that, of course.
Who is? Who
Who is Chan?
Yeah. Who do you-
So this is this is an independent film from 1982, 75 minutes long, black and white, super low budget. I think this movie was made for like $20,000. It's super low budget. I think it's set in San Francisco, and basically these two guys are looking for this guy Chan. They went in on a business deal with this guy for like $4,000 and they can't find him. And they're wondering what the heck's going on. So they're just going around asking people and asking relatives and friends and whomever, where is this guy? How can we find him? But the movie isn't about that. The movie is an actual kind of commentary on like Chinese the Chinese American population and the assimilation into kind of the American society, and kind of taking a look at that from a rather societal perspective. And it's really, really fantastic. And the movie's super low budget and just raw filmmaking, like guerrilla style filmmaking. I have a feeling a lot of the dialogue was just kind of improv or whatever, because it just felt so natural and so not polished, which really led to the kind of grittiness of the film. Highly recommend this movie. It's also streaming on the Criterion Channel right now. And talk about a direct connection to our previous episode. The cover art was done by Sister Hyde.
There she is again.
And she's credited as Drusilla Adeline / Sister Hyde. And it's a great cover. It's a really fantastic cover. It rather accurately describes what the film is all about.
Fantastic. And we got one more. We got one more from Criterion here.
One more, and this is Mississippi Masala. And I had heard about this movie for the first time last year because this 4K restoration was shown at various film festivals, specifically New York Film Festival, and I remember people talking about it. And it's a film starring Denzel Washington, circa 1991. So this was probably, right after Glory? I think Glory was 1989, so this was after Glory, before Malcolm X, I think. And this film is about a Indian family that immigrates from Uganda during the Idi Amin, government regime. Idi Amin, people probably know him mostly for being depicted by Forrest Whitaker in The Last King of Scotland. That's where probably a lot of people knew him from. But of course, all of you history aficionados out there know a lot more. But they basically immigrate to, of all places, Mississippi in the United States. And the film picks up several years later, and they're just living there. They have like a business, and their daughter ends up getting into a relationship with a black man portrayed by Denzel Washington. And the film is kind of commenting on mixed race relationships and how it's frowned upon and you get criticized by your own people and other people for all that kind of stuff. And it's an issue that still goes on today in many different races and many different forms in society. So it's a rather contemporary film from that perspective. And the film is really about the culture and things like that. And it's a really well done movie. I really enjoyed it a lot. It's What I really love about this release that I'm seeing is actually all of the special features are all brand new. They're all brand new.
Yeah.
New audio commentary, new conversation, new interviews, new restoration, new entry in the catalog, and I really like the cover.
Yeah, it's very colorful.
It is very colorful. So I would, if you're into Denzel, you're a Denzel completist, you got to see this movie. It's really, really good.
Cool. Well, that's it for the Criterion releases.
I
in May.
love this week. I love this month.
Yeah, it's a great month. Great month.
It's a very diverse month of titles. It's new stuff, some old stuff, some stuff that I'm pretty sure a lot of people haven't seen. So it's awesome. It's an awesome month.
Well,
But
let's
moving
run
on.
over now to the UK where we can talk about Indicator Powerhouse. They got their May releases on us, and after last month where we had all this controversy around the sex movies, let's now talk about some indie movies that nobody has ever seen before.
Yeah, I know. I guess. I mean, it's not like the other films were seen by a lot of people, but we've got another box set like they typically like to do, and this is the Pamini Organization, 1972 to 1974. Now
The Pamini Organization's apparently this studio that was created by three friends, Peter Crane, Michael Sloan, and Nigel Hodgson. I can't say his name. But the name Pamini is created by the first two letters of each of their names. So they started this studio, and I guess it only lasted a couple
years. Yeah,
but they made these three films: Hunted, Assassin, and Moments in that time period, and they're kind of at least deemed by Indicator to be kind of lost. Good lost independent films, this is the kind of stuff that we've as we've said before, like this is the stuff that we'd love to see from Indicator, where they're bringing us something that I've never even heard of, and they're going full as you say, full tilt,
full tilt
on this, because they have like 20 interviews with people involved in this movie.
Yeah, this is a massive set when it comes to special features. Like, if we were doing our old style of podcast where we were reading out every feature, just covering this alone would probably be like 20 minutes. Just reading features.
Maybe.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's a lot.
There's a lot going on.
There's at least 20 points here of features.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's the world premiere on Blu-ray, and this is a region-free edition. Probably because no one has ever released these movies, maybe ever, because these movies are impossible to find. I looked high and low on the internet to see if there was any trace of these things anywhere, and nothing. And I can say this: the first film, Hunted, is a short film that runs about like 40 minutes long, and then I think the second two are more feature length in terms of runtimes. And the reason why I bring that up is because this box set only has two numbers on it when it comes to the numbering of Indicator
films. Yeah,
because usually if it has three films, it'll be three numbers. But I guess since the first film is a short film, they just kind of roped it into one release.
It's almost
one
like
number.
It's a feature more than it is an
actual film. Yeah,
I guess it's kind of odd that they chose to do that.
Yeah, so it's 138 and 139 as opposed to 138, 139, and 140.
Yeah.
Because if you look at all their box sets, each film has a number, or the box set itself has a number. And so this is just, once again, them going deep into the archives of British cinema, specifically British independent cinema, and bringing out stuff that hasn't seen the light of day, or at least isn't as well known as they believe it should be. So this is really awesome to see. Yeah. And this is a box set that I think, collectors will be interested in. I think cinephiles will be interested in as well, because it's kind of a history lesson in a box set, because we know nothing about it. Yet again, I can't wait to see those films. But moving on from there, we'll go to their other two releases, which are Connecting Rooms and then Murphy's War. Connecting Rooms is a film starring Betty Davis and Michael Redgrave. And this is a film that I believe has a Blu-ray release already here in the States from someone else, or I could be confusing that with the other one. And it's, Connecting Rooms does have a Blu-ray release from 2020 from our friends at Kino. So so a lot of people may already have that release, but I think that release doesn't have really anything really in the way of special features. Yeah, that release from Kino only has an audio commentary from David Del Valle, as opposed to this release has much more than that. This release has several things. And I can tell you this as someone who has seen the film. It's a film that's very play-like, and I think it's based on a play. And Michael Redgrave and Betty Davis are these two people who rent like a room in like this boarding house, flat house, whatever you want to call it, and they're kind of like neighbors. But Betty Davis is also kind of in a relationship with a younger man who's basically just with her for her money and stuff like that. And Michael Redgrave and her kind of develop a relationship with each other, and he's like an old schoolmaster who's trying to get a job, but he really can't because of some controversial stuff in his past. And Betty Davis's character is just trying to like figure out her relationship with this younger guy it's not really going anywhere. It's a really good film, and they're really great actors playing off of one another. There's a whole subplot, a whole side plot with the younger actor and him doing stuff. That was really kind of weak, the weakest part of the movie for me. But it is a later work from Betty Davis, 1970. So this is post kind of the film that she did with Joan Crawford in, why can't I remember the name, Stephen?
Betty Davis?
Yes. The movie she did with Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That was the movie I was thinking of. This was the movie she did post that. One of the movies she did post that. So it was nice to see kind of an older film from an all-time great, in my opinion. And Michael Redgrave is an actor I don't think a lot of people know of, but he was in Alfred Hitchcock's Lady Vanishes.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I saw him for the first time. And he was also in something we talked about recently, an imprint release of the Browning version from 1951, which I thought was an amazing movie. And he was also in The Innocents with Deborah Kerr, directed by Jack Clayton, a Criterion release of a film. And yeah, so Michael Redgrave, another great actor, is also in this film as well. So if you're interested, I would recommend this movie. And then we have Murphy's War. I almost said Murphy's Law.
I was going to say Murphy's Law is
that's the Charles Bronson film.
Charles Bronson film. Kino put that out, I think.
Do you know how many times I looked up Murphy's Law when I was trying to look up Murphy's War to watch this movie?
Yeah.
Many, many times. So this is a film directed by Peter Yates, 1971, starring Peter O'Toole. And the premise of this film is basically Peter O'Toole is he's on a boat in the Navy in World War II, and his boat gets sunk by a U-boat, and he's the only survivor. And he ends up kind of on this island, and he wants to get revenge on this German U-boat that killed all of his friends. Like, he watched, not only did like they sink his boat, but they murdered everybody in the water, and he witnessed it. And he's trying to get revenge on them. So it's him trying to do that, and he's accompanied by the actor Philippe Noiret. At least I think that's how it's pronounced, or Noiret. People may know who this is. He is the older character in Cinema Paradiso, Alfredo, who's the one who teaches the young boy about the projecting of the movies and gives him his love for movies and life lessons and all of that stuff. He's in this film, and I saw when he popped up, and I was like, that guy looks familiar. It's Alfredo from Cinema Paradiso, one of the greatest films of all time. And so in this film, Peter O'Toole is just acting his brains out and yelling in every scene of this movie and kind of losing his mind because he's obsessed with getting revenge by any means necessary, even if it kills him. Like, he just wants to get revenge. And this is towards the end of World War II. Like, Germany's on the verge of surrendering, and he just doesn't care. He's like, I'm going to kill these people no matter what. I don't even care if this war's over. So it's a really good kind of tour de force performance from Peter O'Toole, who I've always been a big fan of. Lawrence of Arabia is epic beyond epics. I did want to point out this is directed by Peter Yates, who did the movie Bullet with Steve McQueen, and amongst other films. I was going to mention a couple of his other films, but I can't quite mention, there's nothing really quite to write home about. He did direct Krull, if anybody cares.
That's one to talk about.
Yeah, the 1983 kind of 80s fantasy movie starring various people. Talk about a movie that's been re-released on Blu-ray from a bunch of different companies. So that's Murphy's War. I don't know if you're a Peter O'Toole fan, then I'd recommend it. But once again, the reason why you get this release is because of the special features, and there seems to be a lot going on here, including interviews and conversations and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that's Murphy's War. But this is a Region B locked edition release, and I think Connecting Rooms is also Region B locked. So keep that in mind when you're importing these.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the indicator releases for May, and I'm very interested in this month. But I don't miss out on a limited edition box of any
that's
kind.
That's the highlight, definitely.
Yeah. And so that's already on pre-order, and if you buy it, like as we've talked about before, they're starting to put out stuff in Region A more and making them region free. This particular thing's already showing up, I think, on Amazon. Andrew told me before it's already on Amazon, and I bought it through Diabolic, and I think it's running about $40. So you save a good amount of money buying it through, if you're in the U.S., buying it through either like a Diabolic or even if you want to wait to buy it from Orbit DVD when they put it in, when they have it at their store. I mean, you're going to save some money. Which, I like buying direct. I like buying direct, but these days I got to save money. So, I'm going to have to buy more from the U.S. so I'm glad Indicator is
Yeah, it looks like Diabolic has it the cheapest right now when it comes to U.S. buyers, because Amazon still has the full, like, $54.99 price, which is the full price. So they haven't put in that, like, that discount or whatever to drop it down. But yeah, and that seems like the best place to do that right now. Ordering direct is the most secure. Like, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it, and
a lot of times you get it early. And even with the way things are right now, Indicator, whenever I was buying direct all the time, my stuff would come maybe sometimes a week early. So they were good like that.
Yeah, and their price right now, I just wanted to do the math, of course. It's 29 British pounds, which is actually about kind of what you ended up paying.
Yeah, but then you got to put the shipping costs on there.
Yeah, I just want you have to put the shipping cost, and international shipping is kind of rough. We say that all the time, and it's really unfortunate that seems to be an issue still, even with like the kind of VAT discount that we're getting. Yeah. It's still not getting us to where we want it to be.
Yeah.
And Diabolic does have that $5 flat shipping, which is really nice. Which is it's not the fastest in the world, but
it's not always. It's not crazy. I will wait a little bit long. I'll use my patience and wait a little longer if I don't have to pay like an extra $15 to $20. It's worth it. So.
Oh yeah. It's not. It's we're patient. Steven's patient, and
I'm not
way
patient.
more patient.
I'm not.
No, he isn't.
I'm not patient when it comes to not buying. I have to buy fucking everything. Andrew. Stop me. Somebody stop me from buying all this
Somebody
stuff.
stop me.
Yeah, no, really.
That's a quote Jim Carrey in The Mask.
The Mask, yeah. But yeah.
So right now, if you want to buy it directly from Powerhouse, it's about $52 as opposed to Diabolic, which is probably like $42. And then Amazon's like at $55 now. So it's all, within a certain price range, just in case anybody listening to this currently is interested in different prices. Yeah. But I think the most important thing is that like you support the brand by buying it from wherever. I think that seems to be a clear.
They're going to get the money either way.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, now let's make it to our last slate of films. We have Via Vision Imprint Films with their May slate, and once again, and we were talking about this off mic. Imprint just keeps coming back out here and just slugging with these releases. Like, I was always curious about them at the beginning, but we had some of our qualms with some of their the fact that we didn't feel like that they were like doing everything they could with the releases when it comes to like their audio remastering and like.
Oh yeah, I was definitely harsh on them at the beginning.
Yeah, you were very harsh on that a lot, and then of course some of the films, and with the prices, coming overseas, we were like, is this worth it? But like, I tell you what, man, they are putting out like all just bangers lately. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happened.
To use a modern slang terminology, I would highly agree with you on that in that regard.
Yeah,
because this slate is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like last month we got that banger of the Wicker Man banger. I don't know why I keep saying it.
I don't know why you keep saying it either.
I don't know. I
didn't know you were that young.
I'm in a certain mood right now. I don't know, but the like last month we got that Wicker Man release that was like a big deal.
That's still a gorgeous looking set.
Yeah, and now we got some big stuff here. So let's start here with.
Do you want to list them all first and then go into them individually, or do you want to? Just go through them one by one.
Let's just go through them one by one.
Okay,
so
sounds good.
The Warriors. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew. I know you want to do it.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Come out to play.
Clink, clink, clink. This release people are buzzing about. Straight up buzzing about. It's a 2-disc edition. You get the director's cut and you get the theatrical cut, but it is the UK theatrical cut, which apparently I believe has a different music soundtrack than the U.S. theatrical cut. Okay. So if that is a hindrance to some people, then just want to make note of that. But massive amounts of special features.
Dude, so many new interviews.
Yeah, the original theatrical cut, the UK cut has a new audio commentary and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that
6?
Is that 6 interviews?
6 new interviews.
Damn.
Well,
that's
no,
a lot.
it's 5 interviews and 1 new audio commentary. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, yeah, okay. And I think the highlight amongst that is James Remar. Yeah, I think it's probably the most well-known actor to come out of this film is James Remar, who's still acting today.
He's Dexter's dad.
Yeah, I know this movie has been floating around on a cheap on a Blu-ray version in the U.S. for many years. That's been as low as like $5. Like it's been available. So, but not in this deluxe terms, and not with this packaging, and not with this artwork or anything like that. It is limited to 2,000 copies, so I got a feeling this is gonna sell real quick.
Yeah, I'm thinking about jumping on this whole slate here, but if nobody knows what the Warriors is, it's like a somewhat futuristic. We don't really know what the year is, but it's supposed to be in the.
It's dystopian.
It's dystopian future, and it's kind of like the city that they're in is run by gangs, all these gangs, and one of the kind of like core gang leader gets killed and then gets blamed on the one of the gangs called the Warriors.
Yeah, the Warriors get framed for it, and they're from, I think they're from Coney Island, and I think it's takes place in New York, and you've got
yes, it does. Yeah,
you've got all different gangs. You've got
from
people with like just like a baseball gang. You've got women. You have an all-woman gang. You've got so many different gangs, and basically they all think that they assassinated this guy, so they're all after them, and they've got to get.
It turns into John Wick Part 2.
Yeah, and they've got to get to.
Yeah.
They have to get home. They got to get home on foot, and it's late at night, and they just gotta survive. And the movie's directed by Walter Hill,
Yes.
I believe, who is an underrated director. Really underrated.
Yeah, I mean, he did one of my favorite versions of what's it? It's damn. What's the Bruce Willis movie, the Western, where he's the isn't that Walter Hill? Or am I thinking of the wrong director?
I don't know. Who are you thinking of?
I don't know. Keep talking.
Talking about Red Heat? No.
No, that's not it. I don't think it's Walter Hill, but I'm gonna make sure.
Okay, you keep looking, and I'll keep talking about how great The Warriors is. So, but Walter Hill also directed. He directed Hard Times. He directed The Driver, which is a great film. If you like the movie Drive, the Nicholas Winding Refn film, The Driver, with starring Ryan O'Neal and Bruce Dern. Nicholas Winding Refn took so much from that movie and put into Drive, and it's pretty obvious. It's a really great film. So Walter Hill is super underrated.
Sorry to interrupt. Go
on.
It's the movie Last Man Standing.
Oh, okay.
Which is based on a Kurosawa story. I'm trying to think of what I think it's Arashima. I can't. It's one of his famous stories. It's basically based around. But yeah, it's
it's based off of Yojimbo.
Yojimbo, that's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Yojimbo. Yojimbo was turned into the first A Man with No Name film, A Fistful of Dollars. So yeah, Yojimbo's been readapted so many times.
But yeah, Walter Hill, he's done a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, really good director. And moving on from the Warriors' gigantic set here, we have another big set. We hinted at it a little bit earlier, and this is a Neo-Noir Cinema Collection 1. So I'm assuming there's going to be more. There's going to be more of these.
Yeah, this is something we've been waiting on for so long. Like, we always get regular film noir, like classic, like 30s,
the classic
40s.
Era. Yeah, 40s and 50s. We've gotten those sets from Imprint. So we've gotten, they've put out, at least two? Maybe three sets? Yeah.
No, it's
two sets of those classic film noir films. But this is a 90s neo-noir set. I'm trying, I'm in my mind, I'm trying to think, has anybody ever done this before?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't know.
And the thing is the neo.
It's tough to do as well.
They've seemed to highlighted the 90s, but I mean, neo noir goes back to the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about noir so many times here on whatever iteration of the podcast, but noir has such variances and diverse subgenres and different eras and all this kind of stuff.
I can tell you this: if they're bold enough, they got to put LA Confidential in one of these.
Hopefully.
The thing is it needs its own release by itself.
Yeah, someone's got to give that a re-release at some point. With all the 4Ks that are coming out, why not do it? Isn't this the 25th anniversary this year? Came out 97.
97, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
That needs to happen, man.
I know. Isn't it
definitive LA Confidential release?
Yeah, is it a 20th Century Fox release? I can't remember. We talked about it when we did it.
Or it means we're screwed.
Yeah, it means Disney may have their hands on it, which is... It means it may not ever see the light of day.
Maybe. I mean, the straight story.
Very true.
And that was an imprint release.
No, okay, LA Confidential is Warner Brothers, so there's an outside shot.
There's an outside shot, yeah. That could be a good Criterion release.
Oh,
I would. Good relationship.
I think Steven would faint if that happened.
I would faint. You would see me faint. Come on, I wouldn't faint. I would jump for joy. But
this is But back to After Dark, Neo Noir Cinema Collection 1. This is a 6-film set, 6-disc set. They all come in their individual own case, artwork. Looks like there's a booklet in here as well. That's probably covering all of these movies. And the movies are After Dark, My Sweet, Rush, One False Move, Mortal Thoughts, Flesh and Bone, and Twilight. And they all range from 1990 to Twilight, which is 1998. And limited to 2,000 copies, 80-page booklet, like I just said. Just essays by critics. This is a really unique set because like I said, I don't think we've ever seen something quite like this before. For me personally, I've been waiting for Twilight to get a Blu-ray release from someone at some point at some time, because it is a film starring my favorite actor in Paul Newman. Also, it's an underrated film in my opinion, and a lot of his '90s work just hasn't gotten, a lot of love when it comes to Blu-ray at all. And I'm pretty sure this is got to be a Blu-ray premiere because the only other Twilight that we keep getting is of course, the Twilight Saga and all that kind of stuff. But I'm digging this. I've seen like 4 out of 6 of these films, and it's definitely worth having all of these in one collection. Now, it is an expensive box set. I'm not gonna lie to our audience on that. It's they're selling it for about, what are they selling it for, Steven? Like $170 or so?
Something like that. I know that you can obviously get a whole bundle of this, and I know that the bundle is about, in American dollars, it's about $260 for this whole bundle. So that means like let's see, 6, 7, 8, so 9 movies for $260.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I haven't seen as many as you. I've seen One False Move, the Carl Franklin film, which I think got a Kino release also, if I'm remembering correctly, or it's going to get one.
Yes, it did.
And then I've seen Rush, which it feels very much like Blood Simple. It's about these like undercover cops that kind of like they go undercover into like the drug world, and I think kind of get caught up in it. And it's really good.
It's a very dark and gritty movie, if I remember. What's interesting is that 2 of the films in this set star Jason Patrick.
Yeah.
And early films from Jason Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rush and
After Dark, My Sweet.
After Dark, My Sweet both star Jason Patrick, and Jason Patrick was a kind of a big star back in the 90s.
Yeah.
He was in a bunch of films, and his career's kind of dissipated into him doing kind of B and C movies now.
He's pretty picky, from what I understand.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
I really have
very
no
picky.
idea about his career trajectory. All I know is that Rush starred him, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Sam Elliott was in it. The late Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers was in a couple of scenes and whatnot. And William Sadler's in the film as well. And it's like these undercover cops kind of just get sucked way too deep into the drug culture, and it's a dark, dirty film because that's the way drugs are, unfortunately.
Sure.
But I remember that I remember seeing that years ago on DVD because I think it's only been available on DVD.
I got that old DVD of it.
Yeah, and in a different kind of tone, After Dark, My Sweet is kind of like like a slow moving, romantic, dramatic, melodrama, neo noir of some kind. I watched it last night.
Bruce Dern's in it for a little bit.
Yeah, Bruce Dern is in it for a little bit, and the movie kind of just meanders a lot.
Yeah, it's not my favorite from this box.
It was okay to me. How was One False Move? I've never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's when we've talked about it before. It's the one that has our man Bill Paxton in it.
Rest in peace. Yes.
Yeah, and where these 2 cops come to town, and there's like these I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's like these guys are coming to attack or coming. They had robbed a bank, or they're coming. I'm mixing up some of my plot points, but basically, Bill Paxton has aspirations to be in law enforcement, and these 2 kind of out-of-town city FBI agents come in and kind of tell him, like, it's rougher than you think, and kind of, play him down a little bit because he's just a country boy. And he shows that he has the ability, to, do something when they, But it's a solid, like, noir film, neo-noir film.
Well, I can tell you Mortal Thoughts stars Bruce Willis, and Demi Moore is in the film as well. Bruce, I will say this forever. I'm continually shocked every time I go back in time and watch a Bruce Willis film from like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Because it's it's not even the same person to today. Like he's acting his ass off back in his prime, and in this movie he's like the most despicable, disgusting person. Like he's a domestic abuser and all this kind of stuff. Basically, Demi Moore plays this character whose friend is married to Bruce Willis, who's just, like I said, an awful, awful, terrible person, and just abuses her friend and all this kind of stuff. And what happens is he ends up getting murdered, and she's telling this whole story to Demi Moore's telling this whole story to the police about how it happened and all this kind of stuff. And Harvey Keitel is one of the police officers that she's telling the story to. He's skeptical about it, and you just see this kind of story unfold via flashback, if you will, and it's really good. It slows down and kind of meanders a bit about an hour into the movie and kind of loses a lot of steam. But for that first hour, when Bruce Willis is on screen, he's just such a loose cannon that you don't know what he's going to do. But Demi Moore's really great in the film as well. I don't know if this is the first time they worked with each other, because they were married and have children and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's good. I wish the second half of the film was a little bit better, but I really did enjoy it a lot. And Twilight, I'll watch any film with Paul Newman. I don't care at all. I don't care how bad it is or anything like that.
Right,
but I will definitely recommend it. And it's unfortunate that it has the same name as a movie that's infinitely more popular than it. Because once you mention Twilight, the mind automatically assumes Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson, all that stuff. But no, this is a different Twilight from 1998. But we got to move on from this gigantic box set full of just massive special features as well.
Yeah.
Each film is getting not only vintage featurettes, but also new stuff as well for the most part, except for One False Move, which looks like it's not getting... Oh, it says to be TBC, which I guess is...
Okay. So they must still be working on it.
Yeah. But everything else is getting commentaries and features. But then we have The Contender.
Yes.
Which is a film I did not get to see. And
it's got, what's his name in it? Shit.
Oh, no. Jeff Bridges.
What's going on? Yeah,
Gary Oldman.
Jeff Bridges, Gary
Joan
Oldman,
Allen.
I was trying to think of.
Christian Slater.
Slater's also in
My
it.
goodness, this is a 90s lineup if I ever did see one.
This is a little bit more in the this is like a political thriller, from what I can tell. But it's got a great cast. Never heard of
cast.
it.
Great cast, solid special features.
Yeah.
I was curious about it. I really wanted to watch it. But moving on, we have Bloody Sunday, which is of course a movie about the 1972 massacre called Bloody Sunday. Between British soldiers and Irish protesters and stuff like that. U2 made a famous song about this back in the 70s.
Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just gonna sing it myself. You cut me.
You
cut me to it.
That's my job, buddy.
That's it. That's your job.
But this is directed by Paul Greengrass.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And so it's got his kind of
shaky cam?
signature, signature documentary style. Very much like just you feel like you're in it, man. It's kind of got that whole, I wouldn't say nearly as maybe it's a little bit more immersive in some ways, but like Children of Men, where it's like very much like you feel like you're in it. And the one interesting thing about the film is its editing style, because it very much like does this thing of like it decides when it does its cuts, a lot of the times it's like fade to blacks. They're all like fade to black and then comes back in fade to black.
That's interesting.
Like everything kind of has a fade to black to it. Not a lot of straight cuts between shots, but it's a very intense film. It starts out very, very much just setting up the characters. You get the points of view of every part, whether it be the British side, the protest leader is kind of highlighted, and then of course some of the you could say the more violent protesters get kind of highlighted too. And it's I mean when it finally bursts, the bubble bursts on this, it's intense, and just thinking about how this really happened, it makes you want to look into it more, and and you find out that nobody really got in trouble for this. It's like the British side got away, got away
Right.
with it. But it's a great film. It's a Paul Greengrass film I wasn't really aware of, so I'll be glad to see it again, maybe in a little bit crisper image, because I know it probably it works to have that grain, but some of that grain might just be because it's not in great quality. So,
I don't know
Yeah.
if this had a Blu-ray release before. And just to point out, this film did come out in 2002, so it's a modern day film.
relatively, yeah.
So of course, Sunday Bloody Sunday is the name of the Criterion film, which is not the same as this. Bloody Sunday and Sunday Bloody Sunday are not the same thing. Sunday Bloody Sunday is the film by John Schlesinger starring Peter Finch from 1971. Not the same as this. Not the same. So just watch out when you're Googling or searching on wherever that is the case, because it looks like this is a Blu-ray premiere. I don't think it was released anyplace else. So that's
good.
interesting. And I just want to see, because I know Paul Greengrass, of course, he's known now for, working with Tom Hanks in Captain Phillips, as well as News of the World, which was a film that came out in 2020. But he, of course, did the Bourne. He did two of the Bourne films, or three of the Bourne films, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say he did most of he just didn't do the first one.
No, he did the Bourne Supremacy, the Bourne Ultimatum, and Jason Bourne. So that is 3 out of the 4 of them that star Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Of course, Bourne. What's that? What's the Bourne one where it starred Jeremy Renner?
Oh, Born Supremacy.
No, not Bourne Supremacy. Oh boy.
Shoot.
Oh no, I don't know what.
I don't.
I almost
know.
said Bourne International, but it's not Bourne International.
It's not.
It's not Bourne International. Either way, he did not direct that film. It's called The Bourne Legacy. That's what it is.
That's it.
For
That's
some reason,
super easy one to remember. But
for some reason, I own the poster of this movie, and I don't know why.
why? Yeah.
I bought it
Why
on
would you-
eBay one time. I guess maybe it was cheap. It's not. It's in a poster tube somewhere.
That's weird.
It is very weird, but he directed all the good Jason Bourne films, I guess. But although the first film, directed by Doug Liman, Bourne Identity, is very, very good.
Yeah.
That's the one with the ultimate shaky cam, though. You get nauseous while watching that. But that is, I think, it for all of the Via Vision / imprint releases.
That's it. Yeah.
So that's been quite a slate of announcements for this week.
And that's our show. Yeah. That's it. Well, how do you feel?
I feel good, Stephen. I
Yeah,
feel
we
accomplished.
did this in a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah, I feel accomplished.
But
Oh, there were a few outliers before we do leave.
oh
Remember,
Jesus.
I forgot to mention them, and I told you to remind me, and you didn't. But I won't hold it against you.
Oh yeah, the pink flamingos thing.
Yeah, 2 Criterion-related tidbits. One is one that people are highly debating and talking about right now, and probably in the future too, is the Coen Brothers film Miller's Crossing, which just came out on the Criterion Collection, is edited by about 2.5 minutes of footage is removed, done so by the Coen Brothers themselves. So it's not a misprint, not a glitch in the Matrix. They just decided to re-edit the movie the way they saw fit, and a lot of people are not upset with that, as they tend to be. I think they did the same thing with Blood Simple, which also got a Criterion release a few years ago, and not a lot of people talked about that, but a lot of people are talking about this. So it's worth to note that if you do have the original kind of bare bones Miller's Crossing Blu-ray put out by, I think, Fox like 10 years ago or so, you may want to hold on to it, because it does have the longer cut of the movie now. But of course, it doesn't have, as good quality aesthetic and special features that you may want. So that's just something of note. You know, we can debate whether it's, you know, whether directors should go back and touch up their movies and re-edit their movies.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot off mic a lot, but my thoughts are and we both agree that as the filmmaker's choice that they should be able to do what they want. Now, my personal preference is I kind of wish. I mean, like I think that the option should always be there for either cut. Definitely, if you're going to do that, there needs to be an option. I think for the people that like the thing that you already done, it'd be nice that is still an option. But I'll be honest, I'm kind of getting sick of filmmakers meddling with something they did 20 years ago or 30
Or
years,
longer.
like it's one thing to like upgrade the aesthetic, to give it a nice restoration and even maybe tweaking some of the color grading, but like, dude, like stop cutting the movies. Like that's the decision you made in the moment that you made the movie, and I feel like that takes away some of the specialness of when that filmmaker was making a decision at a point in their career at that moment. And that's a part of what filmmaking is about creating things in the moment, and like that's what it is. But then like these guys are going back and they're messing with stuff, and I'm like, you're a different person now. Like you're like,
Yeah. Like I bet you if any filmmaker could go back and take a look at their early work, they would re-edit it. They probably shoot more stuff if they could. The thing with me when it comes to this is, yes, I would like the different cuts available so you can watch whichever cut you would like. We have the technology to do stuff like that. There's really no excuse other than, cost and effort by whatever studio is putting it out, or even maybe even if the director says, "Hey, destroy that cut of the movie. I never want to see the light of day again." If they go that extreme. But also, transparency I think is the most important thing. No one told us about this edited down version until it actually came out and people were watching it and they were like, "Hey, there's something missing here. What's going on?" Criterion didn't mention it. The press release that we covered here on the show did not mention at all that this was a new director's cut of the movie or anything like that. It's like, why not tell us? And then maybe we'll be more accepting of it if we actually know, instead of getting blindsided and after spending our money on it, because maybe we wouldn't want to spend the money on it if we knew that it was something cut down, if there were lines removed or whatever was shaved off and whatnot. So I think that's important as well. But moving on to happier thoughts, according to an article in Time magazine about the great John Waters, his film, notorious films, Pink Flamingos, is finally going to be getting a Criterion Blu-ray release. I believe it was mentioned that it may be coming out in June, so that will be, I guess, next month's slate, the next announcement slate of films. So right around, if it's June, it'll be perfect because my birthday's in June. No better gift than Pink Flamingos on Blu-ray for my birthday. This has been rumored, wanted, and talked about for years, ever since they announced that Multiple Maniacs was getting a Criterion Blu-ray release many years ago. We had a feeling it was coming because this movie has not gotten a Blu-ray release yet, I don't believe, at least not here. So it's the ultimate midnight movie. This and Rocky Horror Picture.
It's an anniversary too, right? Isn't it like 50 years?
Yeah, I think it's like the 40th anniversary.
40th year?
Because it came out, I think, 1972. And it's like I said, it came out in 1972. It's the ultimate midnight movie. It's the midnight movie before midnight movies were a thing.
So that's 50 years then.
Is it 50?
Yeah.
Oh my
72?
goodness, that is 50 years. Oh.
Yeah.
Man, time flies when you're alive, I guess. So it is 50 years. So it's, like I said, that and Rocky Horror Picture, I think, are the two most well-known, like quote unquote midnight movies. There's a whole show to go over about.
Maybe we should
that
do.
movie.
Maybe we should do that for that in honor of that release. Talk about John Waters films.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah. Maybe that's something to think about doing. All right. Well, with that said, Andrew, Chasing Labels number 37 is at a close, and where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find me running the other Chasing Labels stuff, whether it be our Twitter at Chasing Labels or Instagram at Chasing Labels Pod. You can also find me on my Letterboxd at Chasing Labels. And you can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.